Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone joining us from around the world. Hello and welcome to the Binance Summit, the world of DeFi. My name is Leah and I'm here with my co-host Josh. Hey Josh, how's it going?
Hey Leah, thanks for tuning in everybody. We have an amazing event planned for you today. We're talking all things DeFi. DeFi is 2020's hottest trend to date, and you'll be hearing from some of the original pioneers as well as the industry's leading experts. We'll be covering topics like how did decentralized finance get its start? How do I pick the right DeFi project? What's the best way to make some passive income with DeFi? And of course, what on earth is yam or sushi?
I hope that's covered in one of the panels today because everyone's been
Right.
asking me and it's hard for me to describe. But I think one of the most interesting things that has come about and come out of DeFi this year is really the strength of innovation and the pace of innovation overall. And we're definitely still in the early days, and it's great to see how every project and everyone is not only pushing ourselves to build faster, but also continuously learning from each other. So figuring out what works, what doesn't, what new risks and opportunities unfold on a daily basis. It's been exciting to say the least.
Absolutely. Yeah, this space has grown so quickly and it's a constant challenge to keep up for all of us. And new projects pop up overnight and it's really clear that there's a ton of opportunities for everyone in the crypto community. So it's been pretty dizzying to see this pace of innovation on display. And as you know, at Binance, we're certainly no strangers to working quickly. So today we'll have some important DeFi related news and updates to share. So be sure to stay on until the end of the stream. So with that said, let's dive right in. Leah, what's our first panel of the day?
Yep, let's dive in. So our program is designed to take everyone on a journey from the rise of DeFi to forecast for the future and bringing DeFi mainstream with fun workshops and live Q&As in between. For our first panel, we'll go behind the scenes on DeFi and explore its early days and subsequent rise. Some of DeFi's original pioneers will trace how it's powering this next crypto boom. We have Tom Shaughnessy, co-founder of Delphi Digital, moderating this session. We'll turn it over to you, Tom, to introduce our first speakers and take it from here. Thanks for joining us.
Hey guys, thanks so much for having me host. It's great to be here. It's a crazy power lineup here. So we have Rune from MakerDAO, we have Stanley from Aave, Kane from Synthetix, and Rob from Compound. I don't think a lot in crypto is going to get done today with you guys on this panel right now. Got you all here. So Rune, why don't we start just with quick 30-second intros. We'll start with you because you're at the top and we'll go down the list.
Certainly. Yeah, I'm Rune Christensen, co-founder of the MakerDAO protocol, which is a DeFi project that's so old, the word DeFi didn't even exist in the first couple of years of the Maker project. And so what Maker does is it provides a decentralized platform for the creation of a stablecoin called the DAI stablecoin, which is worth $1, but has the same characteristics as something like Bitcoin, right? Being fully decentralized. At the same time, the way that the DAI stablecoin is created is through a peer-to-peer collateralized credit platform where people can lock up crypto assets and in the future, potentially even real world assets to then generate the DAI stablecoin. So it's kind of like a central bank that anyone can have in their pocket and use to actually print their own money with. But of course, it's all fully backed and all fully on-chain, verified by the blockchain.
That's awesome. Stanley, what about yourself?
Yeah, I'm Stanley from Aave, and Aave is a money market protocol where you can actually deposit stable coins like Maker's DAI and earn interest on it, and then you can draw credit line against your deposit or delegate your credit line to someone else or to a smart contract that does some sort of a yield strategy. We started with Aave. We were previously known as ETH Lend, short from Ethereum Lending, and we started in 2018 2017 in the beginning, there wasn't stable coins back then, so DeFi wasn't a ecosystem as it is today. And thanks for practically multiple protocols and initiatives like Maker, Compound, Synthetix, Aave, that there is an ecosystem that we can actually now enjoy and see this different kinds of DeFi primitives. But yeah.
Definitely growing. Kane, what about yourself, man? Talk about Synthetix and your background.
Yeah, so Kane from Synthetix, like Aave, we started as a different project called Haven and rebranded and pivoted to Synthetix. So Synthetix allows people to get price exposure to a range of different assets on the Ethereum blockchain. So gold, silver, Bitcoin, various equities, indexes, etc.
That's awesome. And Robert, last but not least, what's going on with your background in Compound?
Yeah, so Compound is a series of interest rate markets for different crypto assets. We pioneered the idea in 2017 and have had a few different iterations on these markets. Our goal at Compound was always to create a system that could be relied upon, could be stable, and could be safe to receive an interest rate on crypto. So, like Rune mentioned, it's been around for years. Before the word DeFi existed, the term DeFi came out, about halfway through Compound's existence. But the goal has always been to create an interest rate accessible by users, smart contracts, and institutions. And the goal of the project at this point is opening that platform up to other developers and other institutions to govern and to build on top of.
That's awesome. So guys, let's dive right into yield farming, because I think it's the most pressing kind of thing going on in crypto right now. So for those new to it, basically users are rewarded for a governance token on one platform for supplying assets, supplying outside assets. I want to get into the beginning of this though. Kane, I think you guys were the first, if I'm not mistaken, to kind of play with yield farming. Excuse me if I'm wrong here, guys, but just wondering, because you guys incentivized the pool kind of early on. Could you get into that and kind of your thoughts on where yield farming has gone?
Yeah, so we actually started incentivizing people with the SNX token to stake within the SNX ecosystem first, and that was going fairly well. But I think it was when we started incentivizing with the SNX token people to put liquidity into Uniswap that the composability and the power of these incentives really kind of became obvious to people. So I think that was kind of the early genesis of this idea of paying people to add liquidity in a native governance token.
Yeah, that's fair. And Rob and Stanley, I'll throw the question back to you guys. I mean, you have a ton of protocols using your platforms to yield farm now. Did you guys expect that level of crazy growth, not just from users, from protocols? And I guess Rob, we could start with you and then go over to Stanley.
Yeah, so a lot of people believe that this latest wave of yield farming is sort of set off by Compound distributing a token. What we started doing in June is distributing our governance token to users of the protocol just for using the protocol naturally. We didn't really anticipate this turning into like a frenzy. And what we've seen, sort of what Kane discovered previously, is that when you distribute tokens to users, they'll actually like jump through hoops to get them. And so we've seen a lot of activity flowing throughout the entire DeFi sector of, extending this idea of like receiving tokens for usage. And it's become, extremely popular, leading to all sorts of other things over the last, couple of weeks and months. Projects like YFI and Yams and Sushi, and like there's right now this like very well-trodden path of leveraging usage for distribution of tokens. I think we're going to see a lot more experiments. The space is unfolding extremely rapidly, but it's becoming an established piece of the space.
No, for sure. I'm with you there. Stanley, what's your thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. Like it kind of came unexpectedly in the sense of DeFi, the few years. Incentives has always driven a bit of kind of adoption in the whole ecosystem. I think before stablecoins, the use case of, for example, what we had in terms of lending and borrowing wasn't that interesting compared to, for example, what stablecoins did. And I mean, the very simple thing was that we saw a period before where stablecoins were giving yields for depositors better compared to, for example, traditional savings accounts. And that gave a lot of attention, and developers got excited to build things, and the whole community was interested about this. Now, then we saw now the yield farming and the kind of incentives on this community equity drive quite a lot of traction again. And it's nice because, like, in one sense, Aave doesn't have this kind of liquidity mining yet. But what's interesting is that, as Robert said, that it really drives the whole traction for the whole ecosystem and brings new users. And what we actually did this time is that it brought a lot of people from the very CeFi world of and basically CeFi users who are holding Bitcoin and haven't used DeFi before are coming into the space and researching a bit. So I think that has been a pretty cool thing. In terms of like how many projects we see coming with the same model, it's getting like there might be a risk of like a bit of fatigue, in the sense that we see the governance giving the power to the users in a nice way to bootstrap a community, but some of the projects lack of bit of innovation in terms of coming with something new. And another thing is that this has been seen as a fair distribution model, but it becomes more of a distribution model that reminds federal banks, where you print money and then the smaller accounts are then basically buying that equity. So there's like also kind of like this dark side as well into this topic.
Yeah, no, definitely dark side. I'm glad that the buzz is attracting new people to the space. And Rune, just to round out our question here, I mean, MakerDAO's stablecoin doesn't exactly, you guys don't offer yield farming itself, but you've been in the space for so long. I'm wondering what your thoughts are on yield farming, because I mean, DAI is like a foundational element of DeFi, and here we are doing, complex things that kind of look like 2008, but kind of look like crazy innovation.
Yeah, Maker doesn't do yield farming itself, but has certainly been very strongly affected by it. In particular, because it's just, I mean, and Compound really started this, right? But through the yield farming programs, the demand for DAI has just totally exploded, which is still being dealt with in the Maker ecosystem right now. But I think what's really important to like keep in mind is that I think it's not just the idea of yield farming itself, or sort of like the concept of yield farming itself, that I think is driving the current DeFi frenzy, right? It's a combination of this new, interesting and novel incentive with the fact that there's some real innovation here as well, right? I mean, the potential of DeFi has been stewing for more than a year at this point, in my opinion, right? It's really been building up to this moment, and then what it took was really maybe the Compound distribution to kind of like set it off and just suddenly create a new level of attention on DeFi that I think is overall it's super positive and beneficial, and I certainly feel much better about this little bubble or rally or whatever you want to call it, compared to something like 2017, right, where it really was mostly just no substance at all and just pure hype. This time around, I think the foundation of it is certainly that there's been a lot of real valuable development. But then, of course, also as Stani is saying, right, then, I mean, you can avoid that situation to then have the opportunists jump in and then what we've seen is also it's turning into a bit of a whales game where the smaller players are being priced out because of scalability issues. But I think you can't you need to accept those kind of drawbacks in order to get the bigger picture, which is that now there really is the beginning of exponential growth of DeFi, right? So this is the very beginning of something much, much bigger that, in my opinion, is fundamentally built on the fact that DeFi provides real value.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. And so guys, the news in the market is kind of like Sushi Swap, which is a DEX kind of copying Uniswap and vampire attacking them, offering a lot of incentives to get their liquidity. And, we've all known that protocols can be forked, and now it's actually happening. I'm wondering, I'll ask each of you, we could all go in a row. What's the most valuable thing for your protocol that can't be forked? Or if you guys were forked, what do you think would keep your users on kind of your protocol? I'll throw this out for anyone to jump in, and we can just go down the row. Kane, how about you, man? You guys have, or go for it.
So, a lot of people talk about, with new projects, the speed at which they come to market. And when a project comes to market very quickly and they're forked, they're really starting from scratch, starting with a new community, starting without the expectations of how the protocol works, without established norms, without trust, without really any of these things. I think, the biggest thing for Compound is that it's been operating without a single flaw for years. There's never been a loss of funds or even like a moment of crisis in Compound. And that goes to the strategy of what we're trying to create, which is, a very stable, predictable, trustworthy platform for, larger applications and institutions. There's a phrase called the Lindy effect, where it basically says the longer something has been running without an issue, the more you can trust it. And we believe that. You can't fork, the Lindy effect of a project that's been around for years, especially when the customer is someone that's looking for years of flawless operations. And so, I think that's one of the things that you can't, fork. At Compound, we've always advocated helping projects that fork off of us. We believe that, they should be running safely in the same way, but, a code base, even if you, copy paste it, isn't going to be run or managed the same way between two different communities or organizations doing it.
That's fair. That's a really good point.
I'll jump in. I think, for us, when you see these like liquidity attacks, right? And, something on like what's happened to Uniswap, it definitely opens your eyes to the potential that you may not have seen before, and potential attack vectors. But I do think that for us, and particularly DAI, even more so DAI, the thing that makes it so hard to just pull liquidity across is this kind of belief that's built up over time, right? It's this kind of monetary premium that's accrued to this asset that people genuinely believe it. And you could take, the code and fork it and, just deploy a new version of it. But it takes a long time to build up that level of belief in an asset like that, in something like DAI. And now, we're starting to see that build in SUSD as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Brune, go for it.
Yeah, I completely agree with what Rob and Kane is saying. And one way to just really make it simple is you can say it's the brand, right? That's really, the brand is what carries all of these qualities in terms of technical security and, the Lindy effect. But I think also, to me, what is extremely important is really things like governance and sort of the predictability and the quality of the community surrounding a project, right? Because one thing is whether the code is gonna break, and to some extent you can actually fork that, right? You can actually fork the code directly, but you can't really so easily fork and convince the users that the governance isn't going to do something crazy, right? Or going to go in some strange direction. And I actually think that that's exactly why what we're seeing with many of these forks, Sushi Swap, I think, is an exception. It's kind of it is doing this kind of very, it's almost like an attack, right? And really going head to head with Uniswap. But if you look at some of the other forks out there, to me, they're mostly trying to take this twist of basically being a little bit more of being exactly what you would expect a fork to be, trying to sort of go in some more quirky or sort of aggressive, maybe a little bit more risky directions, or just deciding on sort of occupying a particular niche, right? I think one example is Cream Finance, which is a fork of Compound, right? And they're basically, they've decided to just onboard all the sort of craziest collateral from across the DeFi space and sort of make it their focus, right? And another example is Reflexer, which is this upcoming fork of Maker that's basically trying to go in the direction of like, I guess you can call purity, right? Of sort of like making it a very simple design and sort of like locking down what governance is supposed to do. And in my opinion, that is actually, I think that's very constructive actually, and especially from the perspective of, I think, a project like Maker that really likes to synergize with other projects and use them as collateral. It's really great to have a lot of different options available.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there, and those are really great points. The other question I have for you guys is that there's always a battle between public founders and anonymous founders. So a lot of projects, obviously Bitcoin, a lot of others that are successful because they're anonymous, but now people are moving more towards they want that brand, as Rune stated. They want a person they can look at that has social ties to a community that you can't break, so that they can't, exit scam away. Do you guys think that your protocols would be as successful as they are? And everybody here has, I think, over 500 million locked up in their platforms. If you guys were anonymous founders instead of known. Free for anyone to jump in.
For me, I think it's very clear that would just never work. And that's because the goal of what Maker is trying to achieve is ultimately to use DeFi and use blockchain technology to upgrade the real financial system and the real world. So I actually spend a considerable amount of my time, talking to regulators and politicians and big companies and all of that stuff, and trying to figure out how can they start to use DeFi and how can we make it less scary for them so that ultimately we can try to get this amazing technology and all the benefits it offers, brought to the real world, so to speak, right? And in order to do that, you can't be anonymous and convince a regulator to allow you to use American mortgages as collateral in your DeFi project, for instance. There has to be that sense of, familiarity and responsibility that comes with also having someone to ultimately, you got someone to chase after if there is an exit scam or something like that, right? And I think that's, in my opinion, that is, if you really want to make a difference, you have to put yourself out there, right? I'm talking about on a global scale. I think there is absolutely sort of a time and a place for anonymous founders, right? And the perfect example is obviously Satoshi, right? But again, if we really want to realize the full benefit of DeFi for the real world, we have to be willing to step into the real world.
Yeah, so that's fair. Go for it, Rob. Sorry.
Yeah, so the ultimate goal, in my opinion, of any DeFi project is to get to a state of being trustless, where you don't have to trust anybody. You can assume that everybody in the system is evil and trying to steal your money, and the system works regardless. When Bitcoin launched, it launched in a position of being trustless. And so it could be anonymous. It didn't need there to be a known founder that you had to trust, because right out of the box, the system reached what a lot of DeFi projects, have as the goal, and it takes years of operating in a truly trustless fashion. Compound today, it took us 3 years, but we're finally a fully trustless system where if every single original developer of the protocol was completely evil and wicked, we still couldn't take your money. And that took years of work to get to this point. It's extremely complex and difficult, where our entire team could be wiped out in a meteor, and the system would still work flawlessly. And that's hard. And so I think you need right now, with these projects, to take years to get to a fully decentralized and trustless state, known projects, because in the interim, there's still a level of trust, unfortunately. I think if an anonymous founder can ship a fully built end-to-end system that doesn't require any trust, then great. I think that's the best possible case. That's Bitcoin. And I think there's going to be teams that ship DeFi products out of the gate that are fully trustless and just work. Uniswap is a great example. Something like that, where there's no admin keys, there's no privileges, could be an anonymous founder. But when there's privileged functions and privileged roles, I don't think being anonymous works until all of those rights get replaced with community control.
I just want to add
Rob,
to that.
Oh, sorry, Sandy, go for it.
Yeah, I just want to add kind of a point that and perspective that I think every developer has a right to be anonymous, and in some ways it basically helps them to be creative and kind of like build something new. And not everyone is in the same position that they can do the same thing without being anonymous. But I really agree on the point that if there is some privileged functions and it's very difficult to kind of attribute who that person is, it creates a lot of complexity. I mean, you can mitigate with time locks and so forth, but definitely it's kind of like a problematic thing. What I don't like in that much is when you use the anonymity kind of like to ruin the idea of basically being able to express things, whatever you are building and creating, but then you're using it to do some sort of like a scams and so forth. So it's very tricky point in that sense. But in very core, I think if system can run trustlessly, but it really takes time to get to that level, especially if you're dealing with traditional finance as well.
That's true. Eventually, you guys are going to have to retire when these things are huge and hand the gavel down. It's going to be a fun day. But Kane, moving on back to the yield farming idea. There's a whole spectrum of incentivization with yield farming and issuance of projects native token to the community. You guys were pretty aggressive in doing this, and it worked quite well for you. So I'd love to start with you on how you guys decided on that spectrum. Like, how do you decide how aggressive to go to incentivize the community? Okay, you're muted real quick.
Yeah, sorry. We knew that we needed to be pretty aggressive to kind of start the flywheel going. When we started our staking incentives, it was like early 2019, and there were a few people left that were still clinging on for dear life to the project, but it was definitely dark times, and so we made a decision to change the monetary policy and pretty aggressively start to distribute the inflationary rewards, and I think that was the right call, and it was able to kind of build that core group of true believers who kind of stuck with the project.
Yeah, for sure. And Rob, you guys decided on a bit longer of a schedule. I mean, you did 4 years out of the gate. How'd you guys land on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, it was designed to have some long-term distribution. What we wanted was for it not to be, in 2 weeks, like some current token distribution strategies. We're going to see lots of experiments from different communities. But I think, all of these different projects are going to figure out the right calibration between long-term, short-term token distribution strategies, decentralization strategies, and incentives. In my mind, I sort of looked at Bitcoin's distribution curve and used that as inspiration. Looking at our own mindset of how quickly can we go. When we started, we actually thought that 4 years was fast because we were looking at Bitcoin as the proxy for distributing these rights, and so. We believe that 4 years was the right time frame. I think history will either judge that correct or incorrect. But the nice thing about the process is that the community and the governance process of compounds can actually change the distribution process. It can speed it up, it can slow it down, it can make it go sideways or zig and zag, and the community can calibrate it. And that's one of the things that's a little bit more flexible than Bitcoin, where it's a much more immutable distribution curve.
Yeah, I'm with you there. That makes a lot of sense. 4 years it didn't feel long when you guys came out of the gate, and then we had projects launching with 2 weeks, things like you said. It was insane. Stanley, what about yourself? You guys released New Avenomics recently as well.
Yeah, I mean,
and you're
kind of,
oh, sorry.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Tom. Yeah. So I mean, in terms of it's really hard to plan for years and years because the whole DeFi space is moving super fast. But in our Avenomics, we try to just figure out what is the most important thing for our protocol and our community, and we kind of understood that once these protocols are growing substantially and they will have hundreds of millions and billions locked value. I mean, when we began this year with the protocol, we were expecting maybe that there will be 5 million worth of value locked in, but that's not the case. It has been substantial more. And during the 6 months, we tried to kind of think like how we can make the protocol as secure as possible and cover situations where there's substantial financial loss that could potentially arise. And during this 6 months, there was different kinds of events that happened. There was the Black Thursday, and for example, the Maker event of minting MKR to cover the protocol deficit, which worked pretty fine, and also there was associated like the DAI backstop syndicate as well to support that initiative. And we're looking like all these different kinds of events and trying to like figure out like how we could actually ensure that our governance is aligned towards the safety. And in essence, the token holders are basically participating in risk-based decision making. So we kind of have a risk transfer, and that is why our token holders are basically staking their tokens, taking the protocol risk, and that is somehow our view that how we could actually ensure this is safetiness. And we do like we definitely like when we saw the SNX compound model in terms of the rewards for the liquidity providers, that was very fascinating to us to follow. And kind of like what we are trying to do more is that we do have liquidity provider rewards, but they're pretty much compounded into the safety module, and trying to get the community aligned towards the safety of the protocol. And it's difficult to see like how it will play out, but at least like so far the community has been pretty positive about it.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's definitely a pendulum on incentivizing versus using up all your ammo and then potentially leaving a competitor to swoop in when you're kind of low. Rune, just switching gears a little bit here, I'd love to talk about governance a bit, because I first kind of got involved with governance with kind of MakerDAO and watching kind of the votes on the interest rates changes for your protocol. How do you think about ongoing governance, including a community, and also keeping in mind that the community could eventually, burn out, and you don't want that to happen?
Yeah, I mean, that's something we've really been focusing on in Maker since the very beginning, right? And I actually think that the foundation of a good community and the foundation of good governance has to come from, in a sense, what I would call altruism, right? Like, I don't think that if you have, a governance and community that is like the only incentive is some sort of monetary incentive and nothing else, there's no like vision, there's no like shared belief in the value of the system, then inevitably it's gonna, the fact that there's that solidarity doesn't exist is going to somehow like hurt the project in the long run, right? And I think that's the reason why the Maker community has always been so strong, because it's just always had this like very unique flavor to it, where it's a lot like it's been a lot more kind of like, I guess you can say maybe a little bit more old school or mature or something compared to a lot of other things in crypto. And it's always been that's exactly what Maker is supposed to be, right? And it's even reflected in the token economics of the MKR token, right? Where if you hold MKR, you're taking on the full risk of the system, and you're really just like putting your money where your mouth is. And any governance decision you make, if it blows up, if it turns out to be the wrong decision, you're gonna instantly have to pay for it directly. But I think moving forward in Maker, really the exercise, in fact, and sort of the big change that we've been trying to do in the community and in the foundation as well for at this point, it's been going on for about a year, is to figure out how to empower the community to start actually spending money that the protocol is earning in order to reward contributors. So basically, how do you get a decentralized organization to hire like full-time staff, to create a real organization of people that are going to be working on the protocol? And I think it's like, this is not necessarily something that all protocols need. In fact, I think most don't really need it. But when you have something as complex and basically as sort of something where that's so important as an infrastructure as Maker, you just have to have these. There has to be people who are responsible for constantly auditing the security of the protocol, for instance. But getting a decentralized community to properly like govern that is a big challenge, of course. But actually, it's I mean, it's been, like I said, there's already been this concept in the community for a year at this point, what's called domain teams. So basically teams that are, they're responsible for different aspects of the protocol's well-being, that are then elected by the community, and very soon will also actually be paid directly by the community. And to me, that's really exciting, right? Because I think that's when you can start to see this kind of like, DeFi sort of like, breaking through sort of the shackles and sort of, transcending the fact that, we have this whole question of like the founder and the foundation and the organization behind it and so on, right? And really just having protocols and communities just being their completely own thing that really grow on their own, right? Through their own strength and their own decisions.
Rune, that's a really good point. I guess my question for the group here, though, is a lot of the protocols here are pretty complex for an everyday person to understand. So, like, doesn't it make sense to have some centralization in who's making the decisions on, let's say, stability fees or, risk or reserve ratios, or, Kane, your platform's pretty complex as well. I mean, not when you use it, but on the inside as well. How do you guys think about that? Like, should there be set kind of smart plugged in people who are making decisions on behalf of the community on the governance side?
I think we're starting to see the necessity for that emerge, as the implications of things and the complexity increases, trying to, especially as your community grows, right? Like, this is again something that I think, the older projects deal with, where they have maybe, thousands of people or even tens of thousands of people that are stakeholders in the project. And so, trying to coordinate all those people to make the right decisions is really hard. And so I think, there's different approaches that different projects have taken around, trying to stay with like rough consensus, like, Ethereum has, or on-chain governance. We've kind of tried to, I guess, take it slow and start with this rough consensus process. But we are eventually going to need to migrate to some form of on-chain governance. So, for us, I think it's just this kind of evolutionary approach, and taking the feedback from the community and working out what the best thing for the project is at any given time in terms of governance.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And guys, switching over to one of my last questions, we'll turn over to kind of some live Q&A questions. It seems like eventually you guys will be built on other chains, whether you guys decide or whether the community kind of takes you there. But it seems like at this point, it's kind of, the decision of the founding teams on whether you want to build on other chains. So Ethereum's gas fees are insane, so there's kind of more of a reason to build on other chains. But the flip side is other chains don't have a lot of infrastructure or tokens to even really interact with, so it's kind of pointless at this point. What's your take on preemptively building on other chains, and how do you weigh that with the potential of kind of hurting your view of the ETH community? You could throw this out for anybody who wants to take it, by the way, because everyone here is built on Ethereum right now.
I'll just quickly say, we already went down this path, and it was a pretty big mistake going down the EOS path in 2018. And, we kind of, rolled that back and decided to stick with Ethereum. So, my view is, I think, we're pretty locked into ETH, and, we're looking at ETH scalability as the solution rather than other chains.
Yeah, also,
I like
really
that. Candid. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Rune.
So what I'm saying is, I think that the moat, or like the importance of not exactly Ethereum, but rather I would say like the Ethereum main shard, right? Like the blockchain that everyone's building on right now, and where everything is sort of connecting together. I think the importance of that just cannot be overstated. Like, and I really believe that it's completely impossible for anything to kind of like ever take its place as that role, which is kind of like, it's the central settlement layer, right? It's like the central point where if you want to interoperate, you want to collaborate and want to synergize with other projects, there's a really easy way to do it, which is to have some sort of connection on that blockchain. And that's actually why I also think that it's going to be like the center of the whole scalability explosion, right? Like, so the main Ethereum shard is where everything else is going to connect into in order to provide the scalability benefits, right? So I actually view even Ethereum killer blockchains as layer 2 solutions to some extent, right? That the only way that they're going to be able to compete, in my opinion, is if they provide a very high quality bridge to the Ethereum main shard. And that's what I think we're already starting to see that to some extent, right? That this is how a lot of new blockchains and new scalability solutions really differentiate and market themselves, by saying that if you use us, you're going to have a really easy time also interacting with things on Ethereum. Because being able to interact with things on Ethereum is, and in general, being able to synergize with other projects is the one thing that a DeFi project needs in order to have any sort of relevance. Like without that, you just don't really have the value of DeFi at all. So that's the starting point. And then the question is, how do you then access scalability in other places?
That's totally fair. Rob, Stanley, what about you guys? Do you think you'll ever have assets from other chains on Compound or Aave, or even be built on other platforms?
So I think assets from other chains will make their way onto Ethereum. I think we're starting to see a lot more interoperability between blockchains. But I do think that most projects will live primarily on one blockchain. For a community to sort of try to run a project on two different blockchains, it's not twice as hard, it's probably 4 times as hard. It's a classic organizational theory piece there. And so I think like most projects will have just one home or one blockchain. And for the time being, Ethereum has massive advantages over most other chains. As Rune pointed out, there's this composability. It's like because everyone's in one place, nobody wants to leave that one place. Ethereum also has most of the assets. If you look at other blockchains right now, there might be 1 or 2 tokens, especially a native token, maybe a stable coin, but it doesn't have the ecosystem of all of the assets that are living on Ethereum today. Almost every new token that gets created, every yield farming thing, for the most part, like 90% plus of like the really new assets are being launched on Ethereum right now. So there's a network effect that's hard to break. So I think that the path that this might play out is as there's like interoperability between blockchains, you might see assets from other blockchains being replicated on Ethereum. You might see Ethereum assets being replicated on other blockchains. And over time, you might start to see, one asset being issued simultaneously on many blockchains. And eventually, once there's like 100 different really good, liquid, high quality assets on a blockchain, you might start to see DeFi projects that can operate in single player mode, that don't need interoperability with lots of other projects, make the leap and say, okay, because we don't need to work with other projects right now, and there's finally a lot of like really interesting assets, now we're going to build a great DeFi project.
I would just add that kind of like, I think like for at least for Aave, like the headquarters is always like Ethereum. I mean, we were basically born and raised here, but like I would definitely love to see more assets coming into Ethereum, and especially assets that people are just holding and they don't have any kind of like a additional utility and usability, and we'll probably see more bridges of this, and we'll definitely love to see this in Ethereum. But I would love to also see that if there is a kind of like alternative consensus mechanisms in other blockchains, I would love to see that their communities will grow and flourish in a way that they become kind of like they will have their own culture and so forth. And I think like replicating what there is in Ethereum, I don't think that is like a workable thing. But I could imagine that if there is some sort of blockchain or layer 2 solution just for gaming, like for example Matic, and you will see a lot of games, NFTs there. I would love to see that kind of stuff more. Yeah.
That's awesome. And guys, we have a couple minutes left, so I'll turn over to one of the live Q&A questions. And somebody asked basically the kind of the interplay between DeFi and the global banking industry. And, when I first got into crypto, I left Wall Street, and then I thought, can't wait for the, Wall Street to form partnerships with DeFi projects. Then now I'm like, can't wait for DeFi to just crush Wall Street and banking projects. And now I think that basically the consumer-facing banking apps have just massive distribution and can really help DeFi projects get exposure. What's your guys' take on DeFi actually challenging or just completely displacing the global financial industry?
Well, the compound strategy is to be good enough for a traditional bank to allow their customers to use. I envision an ecosystem in which, 5 years from now, large, well-known banks, supply assets to compound. And everything that, the community does and we set the vision for is to enable that. Eventually banks, supplying their assets to compound. for the protocol, that means focusing on safety, having less assets, less risk, less volatility, less innovation in some sense, to make a more stable and predictable system. And I think, DeFi is going to win when, existing financial institutions are able to use it. Because, for the time being, existing financial systems are orders of magnitude larger than crypto. And so, my vision is that DeFi, will be used by traditional finance, and traditional finance will supply assets into DeFi. Not that, one has to kill the other. I think DeFi will suck in all of the assets over time.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm excited for that. Rune, go for it.
Yeah, I think I don't really expect, and actually I hope that DeFi isn't gonna like crush the system or kill the banks or something. But I do hope that it'll accelerate a trend that I think is already happening to some extent, right? Which is the unbundling of banks and financial institutions, right? So actually, to Robert's point, that you might see banks in the future focusing less on building these like underlying interest rate protocols and sort of underlying interest rate systems, and instead focusing on how to like market what's already there and pick the best stuff for the users, right? And then bring it to the users. And what we think of as the banking brands of today will in the future be actually more, maybe in the very long run, like be like DeFi front ends, right? For instance, to really be futuristic about it. And one of the ways this is already happening right now is with, the tokenization of real world assets and sort of the very early attempt to bring real world assets into DeFi. Because what we're actually seeing is things like, in Maker, and I believe also in Aave, that there is these right now it's primarily in real estate and then in trade finance, where the opportunity just is already there. The product market fit is very close. And what you can really do is you can completely like circumvent all the middlemen that right now are a part of like these large financial transactions of that actually have like incredible efficiency losses from all the middlemen, basically. So if in the future we're able to fund things like real estate construction projects, or international do trade finance for international invoices and so on through DeFi, meaning that you can just fund something directly based on on how sound it is financially, that's really gonna first of all, like cut out a lot of middlemen that just shouldn't be there at all. They're only there because the system is inefficient. But then also really just like make a big difference in how the global economy functions, right? Because shaving off a few percentage of interest rates is that's gonna have major repercussions for just like pretty much every aspect of the economy.
I think I'm definitely in the crush camp myself. I think that these new forms of coordination that we're seeing emerge in DeFi have the potential to really change the landscape of finance. And I think the missing link right now is the kind of hybrid connectivity between what DeFi is doing, these very transparent systems, and the legacy financial infrastructure. And so I think that what we're probably going to see is legacy finance starting to adopt some of the DeFi primitives that are being built to gain a competitive advantage, which is going to be the first kind of step to this erosion of the legacy systems and replacement with much more open and transparent systems. That's my hope. That's my hope, at least.
Yeah, we'll definitely see what happens. Well, guys, this has been an awesome panel. It's hard to get all four of you guys in a room together, so I'm glad we had Rune from MakerDAO, Stanley from Aave, Kane from Synthetix, and Rob from Compound. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Fascinating stuff. A massive thanks to our panelists and our moderator. Let's crack on. So next we have a very special session for you all. So Leia, the eternal duel between DeFi and CeFi is another one of this year's hot topics.
Yes, absolutely. Especially with the launch of BSwap and Binance Launch Pool last week, we're bringing the DeFi experience to Binance and have more developments to share today too. For our next session, we are very excited to invite CZ, the CEO and founder of Binance, to share his views on DeFi, bridging DeFi and CeFi, and how Binance plans to support the larger DeFi ecosystem. I've heard some say that this might be the biggest news of the year.
Wow, I'm very excited to hear more. So without further ado, please welcome CZ.
Welcome.
Hello, guys. Yeah, thanks for joining the event today. And I have a couple of things to share. One is how Binance plans to further support the DeFi ecosystem, and also our solutions in the to bridge the DeFi CeFi space. And I have a $100 million announcement to make, so I'll do that slightly towards the end to keep everyone around, so that people don't fall asleep. So I jump straight in. So Binance is pro-innovation, especially in the DeFi, anything decentralized. Even though everyone views Binance.com as a centralized exchange, we're always ready to disrupt ourselves. So we have been thinking very hard at how to support DeFi from a centralized exchange perspective to start with. So one of the things we want to do well is to help bridge DeFi and CeFi and find synergies between the two. So we do offer products in both spaces ourselves, and we want to build a bridge between them. So we have a Binance Smart Chain that's finally released. I've been very eager to wait for that to be released. It was actually supposed to be released in Q4 this year, but the team pushed forward really hard and released it actually early. So with Binance Smart Chain released now, so we have BNB running on 2 blockchains, and there's a bridge between them already. So the same BNB coin can be transferred between 2 blockchains. And Binance Smart Chain is really important for a number of reasons. It supports a Ethereum compatible smart contract. So if you can basically port your Solidity language smart contracts directly onto Binance Smart Chain. And during the previous channel, people were talking about the importance of compatibility to Ethereum. I think we took that to heart. We also have the centralized exchange, one of the largest centralized exchanges, Binance.com, supporting a number of initiatives. So we can actually help bridge the two. So one of the key ways Binance.com wants to help bridge that gap is we're launching a new project called the Token Canal. It's a way for Binance to use the Binance security custody service to launch various tokens on the Binance Smart Chain. So we can hold custody of the tokens on through Binance.com and launch a either you call it similar to WBTC or PEG tokens, etc. So this way we allow any tokens to or any coins to be transferred, equal value to be transferred on the Binance Smart Chain. So initially, we are already supporting this for Bitcoin, Ethereum, Link, USDT, DAI, Wi-Fi, Sushi, etc. And also there's XRP, BTC, LTC, ADA, DOT, Tezos, EOS, ONT, etc. So the list is quite long. So we basically want to support, help migrate all of at least a version of all of those tokens on, so that they have liquidity on Binance Smart Chain and on Binance.com. And Binance Smart Chain aims to bridge assets of US dollars, more than $1 billion US dollars of assets. And today you can view them already. There's a website called BSC, Binance Smart Chain, so bscscan.com/tokens. So if you go to that website, you can actually see most of the tokens there already. This website is not built by Binance. It's actually built by one of our partners. This is the same guys behind Etherscan, I believe. I could be wrong, but there's a lot of information I'm relaying. So actually, I don't really know everything that goes on in the Binance ecosystem anymore, or in the BNB or Binance Smart Chain ecosystem or the Binance Chain ecosystem anymore. So, but this is a strong way for us to implement the cross-chain functionalities. So we are leveraging on the liquidity of Binance.com, the centralized exchange, to bootstrap Binance Smart Chain. So on Binance Smart Chain, there's already a number of really interesting projects leveraging automated market makers and DEXs. And the Binance Smart Chain DEXs, automated market makers, AMMs, will also provide liquidity for Binance DEX order book. So there's a way for that to work as well. So this is a way where a number of these projects will be able to help a number of the different projects or infrastructures are able to leverage each other and help each other. So let me see if I missed anything here. One of the bigger announcements I want to make right now is to bootstrap or to kick off the Binance Smart Chain and to invite all the ecosystem players to start developing on Binance Smart Chain. We are launching a $100 million fund for the Binance Smart Chain ecosystem community. So for developers who wants to develop projects on Binance Smart Chain, we are launching a $100 million equivalent fund to seed different projects. And there's already a very decent pipeline of projects already developing on Binance Smart Chain. And this is tagging along to our existing investment and also ecosystem community investment infrastructures such as Binance X, Binance Labs, and also Binance Launchpad. So we are calling for projects to join actually, we're hosting a competition next week. So we do expect a few different hundreds of DEX swaps, etc. So and we'll actually, I think by Friday tomorrow, or today here in Asia. There's already 5 projects. The first batch of 5 projects are already launching Friday, so today, tomorrow, depending on where you are in the world. There are 2 of them are decentralized lending. They're Cream and Fortube. 2 of them are automated market makers, Spartan Swap and Bakery Swap. I'll talk a little bit about them a little bit later. And auction and also decentralized auction, Bounce.finance. So that's the sort of a quick version of the announcements. I'm happy to take any questions now.
Okay. Hey, CZ, that's super exciting stuff. This looks pretty huge for the ecosystem. So in this next part, what we've done is we've gathered a few questions from the community, and we'd love to dig deeper into some of just what you've shared with us. Leah, do you want to go first?
Sure, yeah, and thanks, CZ, for sharing all that. Super exciting. So let's start with Binance Smart Chain, an open-ended question to start. So an $100 million seed fund is a pretty big commitment, CZ, and what do you hope to achieve with this, and how do you see this play out for the industry in the long term?
Well, so number one, I think is really just actually, to be honest, higher numbers were talked about internally. I was actually proposing some higher numbers before, but we set it on 100 million to start with. I think it just goes to show that we do view this as a significant initiative, and not just sort of not within Binance, but within the Binance ecosystem. So we want to be fully committed to help Bootstrap launch this ecosystem with solid funding, and also to invite projects and reward the early reward and also support the early adopters. So I think as for any community or ecosystem or decentralized technologies, the community is really, really important. I think Binance already have the Binance centralized exchange or the centralized entity already have a lot of influence in this area, but we want to further support that with a very heavy commitment. And to be honest, this is just a number to start. Let's see what happens. We could do more, yeah, I do strongly believe that with what we have already, things should be quite lively. And with this, we should see a turbo boost to the ecosystem development.
Awesome.
Great stuff. Okay, so changing pace a little bit. Anonymous founders, they're a big part of the DeFi ecosystem at the moment. Would an anonymous team be able to receive funding from this $100 million seed fund?
Yes, short term is yes. I think basically today, as long as the project's solid, that's not a problem. So look, if we look at Bitcoin, Bitcoin's founder is anonymous and it worked really well. And there's a very strong advantage to that. Given the advantage is truly or it's more decentralized. So if you look at most of the other projects in the space, most of the other blockchains, you can usually associate a person or at least a founder that you know, and that actually makes it less decentralized. So they are good and bad. A project where you know the founder are probably easier to bootstrap because it's easier to establish credibility initially with a founder present. But once the project takes off, it's actually better to have to not know Satoshi Nakamoto today. So I think if Satoshi Nakamoto suddenly appeared today, and we can verify who he is, it actually may decrease the value of Bitcoin. So towards the later stages, DeFi projects actually better to be more anonymous. It's better to not know the founders. So we should just really look at the technology. The source code should be public, and we should be looking at that. So we want to, but at the same time, I understand where this question came from. So there was Sushi, which we listed a project that the founder was anonymous, but he is active, he's around, and he cashed out some of his tokens that was publicly unlocked. And this created a lot of questions about the Binance.com listing process. So I'll take this opportunity to clear that up as well. So for Binance, we in the listing guideline I written 3 years ago, well, me plus the team has modified it quite a bit over the years, and we said that if you're submitting an application for Binance.com for listing, we typically require the founder or the CEO or somebody who's in charge to be submitting that. But Binance.com did list many tokens without any application. So that's always the case. Bitcoin is one of them. Ethereum is one of them. There's a number of other projects or blockchains that we listed without any application. Fundamentally, I think people should realize exchanges are in competition as well. So exchanges want to list good coins that are popular, that have large number of users. And in this DeFi craze, it is important for, and Binance is a leading, one of the Binance's strong features is a large selection of coins. So in this DeFi craziness, when DeFi is really hot, we do have to list new tokens fairly quickly. And we want to do more to label this as a higher risk going forward. And we may even make separate sections for them, etc. So this is a part I want to fully address given this AMA opportunity.
Great.
All right, and I'm sure we'll continue to go through the same rigorous listing process and due diligence and all that, especially on the tech side as new technology develops. So for the next question, we're wondering if you can tell us a little bit more about the cross-chain token canal project. So cross-chain is definitely something that has been discussed and highly debated as well, especially recently. So from your perspective, why is this token canal project significant and how will it be shaking the industry?
Sure. I think most of the, to date, most of the cross-chain projects are really done in a truly decentralized way, but there are some advantages to that. But also most of the, mass users are not familiar with it. They're not that easy to use. And on Binance.com, we have had the feature for a long time where we allow when a token exists on multiple platforms, when the user wants to make a withdrawal, we let them choose which blockchain, which network to use to withdraw from. And it provides a very easy way for people to convert from tokens from one network to another. So today, many people deposit, ERC20 USDT and then withdraw on a different network. And it's the same USDT token, well, not exactly the same on two different networks. So we will extend this facility. To be honest, we have already extended this facility towards many top projects already. So pretty much most of the top 10 or probably top 20 blockchains already have that feature available on Binance Smart Chain. And by providing this by expanding this service offering to more tokens and more coins, we can allow, number one, more tokens to be free flowing on Binance Smart Chain. This reduces this avoids more of the performance bottlenecks we're seeing on some networks, and as a result, also high gas fees. And also, there's a second strong benefit for blockchains that doesn't have strong smart contract capabilities. Now, with this token that's on Binance Smart Chain, you can actually wrap this token into a smart contract and provide either DeFi, staking, yield farming abilities on top of that. For example, if you take a coin like LTC, take that version that's available on the Binance Smart Chain, you can actually program some yield farming or staking ability on top of that, which is not very easy to do on the native Litecoin blockchain today. So there's a lot of those type of features we can add. So I think that's kind of the two main reasons behind the Token Canal project.
Okay, so CZ, just to drill a little bit more into the uniqueness of the Binance Smart Chain, what would you say is kind of the most unique innovation and strength about Binance Smart Chain? And maybe take some time to compare that to Ethereum and some other public chains.
Sure. I think comparing to Ethereum is actually a really good starting point. So feature-wise, we actually deliberately did not add features on top of Ethereum. So it's actually 100% Ethereum compatible. So it's 100% EVM compatible, Ethereum virtual machine compatible. So you can take an Ethereum smart contract, put it on Binance Smart Chain, it will work. We did focus very much on performance and speed. So we want to solve the fun. So if you look at Binance.com, we took a relatively old concept and we just made a really fast version of it. So Binance.com is a really fast exchange. People who are trading either through our UI or through our APIs can really feel it. So we took this Binance Smart Chain is a very similar concept where when we had the Binance Chain where we had a really fast DEX, but it doesn't have smart contract features. A smart contract was the number one requested feature for the last year and a half or so. So we took that to heart and we did that. Together with higher performance, you will get low fees. So I think the fees on Binance Smart Chain are about 1/20th of what's on Ethereum on normal days. Not right now. Right now, Ethereum's prices are just too high. So even when we benchmark through the sort of normal periods, like say a month or 2 months ago on Ethereum, the gas fees for transfers are on Binance Smart Chain is about 1/20th. So maybe 5% of that. So it's a very low cost. So the cross-chain tokens are supported through Binance initially, and given the smart contract capabilities, we will be people can also use decentralized cross-chain develop decentralized cross-chain solutions as well, and also the BNB that is the same BNB that's on Binance Smart Chain and on Binance Chain, which has a really fast native DEX, which I think will get a lot of benefits from this, but also will also provide a lot of benefits to Binance Smart Chain. All the tokens on there can be traded on native DEX with a real order book. So if people prefer a automated market maker way of trading, fine, they can do that. People want like order books style of trading, they can do that too. So this way, you can control the price, how you want to sell, etc., which is more natural to most traders today, actually. And also the last, not the last, but last but not least, we do want to give preferential treatment for listing considerations on Binance.com for tokens that are on Binance Smart Chain or Binance Chain. Because there's no development work for us. It's just a configuration parameter, and then we can list that token. So we will give, and we will use this as a incentive to bootstrap, also kickstart Binance Smart Chain as well. So there's a much longer list, but those are sort of a few things on top of my head.
Cool.
Awesome. And then one thing that you mentioned, CZ, was that the community has been asking for Binance Smart Chain and smart contracts for about 1.5 years now. So what, in terms of timing, why did Binance Smart Chain launch now rather than earlier, or even waiting until next year or something? And then also, Like did it come from the community, the idea to do Binance Smart Chain?
I think the community was requesting a smart contract features on Binance Chain, and we thought about how to do that. Really the Binance Chain team. So they looked at various technology choices, etc., and they decided to do a parallel chain as the best solution. And it just takes a long time to do a chain. And so they have been working on for more or less like for 18 months or so for the last year and a half. So it's not, and basically it's whenever the time is not planned. It's whenever it's ready, you'll be out too. And I was getting really, really anxious about 6 months, or not so much 6 months ago, maybe 3 months ago. I was getting really anxious. I was like, well, are we there yet? Because DeFi is really hot, and it will really help to have this. And they were saying Q4 this year, by August, by early August, there was a version that's ready, and then they wanted to go through a 5-week security review. So they went through. They've already done their own security review. They went to outside security audit partners to do that review. Took another month or almost a month and a half, I think. And so it just took that long. And I think we're quite lucky in terms of timing. If it was 2 or 3 months earlier, it probably would have been better. But now we're not too late. It's actually a very similar situation to when Binance.com launched. If Binance.com launched in, say, March of 2017, it probably would have been better. But July wasn't that late. So we may be a couple of months late, but we're still pretty early in the game. So I think we got pretty lucky with the timing there.
Awesome. And one more question from my side. So especially with so many features being developed on both Binance Chain and Binance Smart Chain, do you see Binance Smart Chain and Binance DEX, for example, increasingly competing with Binance.com? And also a second part of that is, can you also tell us more about the strategic role that you see Binance Smart Chain playing in the overall Binance ecosystem, as well as the larger blockchain ecosystem?
Sure. So it is my hope that Binance Smart Chain really takes, users, volume, traffic, liquidity away from Binance.com. If that happens, I will be really, really happy. So I think basically the goal of Binance Smart Chain is to provide another choice in this ecosystem to further push decentralization efforts. And if this effort is able to disrupt Binance.com, that's great. It's always better to disrupt yourself than having somebody else disrupt yourself. So I'm not sure if it's going to happen or how quickly it may happen. So a lot of these things in the future are very hard to predict. But decentralized exchanges have a lot of benefits. DEXs are much, much cheaper to run. So they don't hold custodian of user funds, and they don't. As a result, there's a whole slew of security infrastructure and security investments that you don't have to do, and that's hundreds of millions of dollars of cost that Binance pays. So with less they have much less infrastructure to maintain and operate. So it's much easier to operationally to run, and there's also no KYC, no AML overheads. So that cost is also gone. So in theory, so that's a huge cost to most centralized exchanges. Most centralized exchanges have teams of guys doing those things, and they're very expensive. Compliance teams, legal teams, all of that could be gone. So in theory, decentralized exchanges should be cheaper to run, and thereby should be cheaper to the users. But I think today, even with the performance of Binance DEX, it's quite hard to compete with centralized offerings. So I think DeFi is really good, and I'm really pushing for it. I think a lot of the core principles in DeFi do work. Decentralized exchanges, decentralized automated market makers for liquidity, to provide liquidity. All of these things are really nice things. But I think in the short term, centralized exchanges will continue to play a role. But for me, I will be really happy when decentralized exchanges replace centralized exchanges. I think that that will push our overall mission forward, and we'll be ready for it. We'll find something. We will definitely find something to do. When that happens, the equity of Binance.com or the centralized entity may be worth much less, but BNB will be worth much more. So we don't lose that much. So we are a very unique organization that we actually value BNB more than equity. So we want to decentralize ourselves anyway. So, and we're not hurt by that decentralization. So I'm not worried.
Cool. Practicing what we preach. Very, very cool. Okay, let's talk a little bit about some of the projects that we'll be launching on Binance Smart Chain this week and next week. Can you share a little bit about what these projects do, a little bit about what their vision is, and why do you think the community should, keep a close eye on what's coming in the coming weeks?
Sure. So first of all, I want a disclaimer. I'm not an expert. Due to my time's really segmented along many different interruptions. So I'm not an expert, but I will share the little bit I know. So Cream and Fruittube are very much like Compound, but they do have a governance token. So both of them do have more flexible listing strategies and collateral ratios, and also they have some innovations around the liquidation strategy. So Cream is already the number 11 project on DeFi Pause based on the total value locked TVL. And it's also fully supported by Compound. So those two projects are sort of Compound-like, Cream and Fruittube. Spartan is a really, really interesting project in a few different ways. So it's really like Synthetix.io and a little bit like SushiSwap, but they are more aggressive. Spartan Swap also has a really interesting bootstrap model. They actually take BNB and they burn that to issue their own coin, so their own token. So they actually in one transaction, well, I got different numbers, but in one transaction I know for sure, in one single transaction they actually burned 3,000 BNB, and they issued corresponding Spartan coins. So this is a really in one way to look at it, is a much more expensive way to bootstrap, but it also gives a lot of credibility and higher value, very solid value to the coins that they give out, that are minted. So basically, they're this is kind of like Bitcoin mining, right? So you're really spending electricity to create those coins. There's a cost of producing the token, and they're really burning BNB. So I do want to clarify, those burns are not done by us. We will continue to honor our commitment to burn a total of 100 million BNB throughout time. So. So Spartan Swap has that. They have a couple of different phases of token minting. The first phase is a burn of BNB tokens and also some other tokens as well, not just BNB. And then the next phase is similar to Uniswap, and then the next phase is kind of similar to SushiSwap. I can't explain more than that, to be honest. I will probably screw up the explanation somewhere. But do look at it. It's a really, really. I do just based on that. I think the team's pretty dedicated in the way they want to run the project. Bakery Swap is also from the Binance Chain community. It is also similar to SushiSwap, JetSwap, etc. So that's also like a swap type of project. Bounce.finance is a OTC and auction protocol. So it also supports auction-based mining. So all of those projects are really interesting. Those projects are not done by Binance, and they're not. I'm not endorsing them. We're not guaranteeing any them. All of the DeFi projects, including these 5, are super high risk. If you do invest in them, do not complain. Do not try to come back. I really hope that you don't come back and complain that CZ endorsed them. But those are the 5 projects that's going live tomorrow. They are super high risk. So if you think that if you lose money you're going to blame somebody else, then don't invest in them, and only invest with money that you can lose. So super high risk. But those are the 5 projects that are going live, and given that they are on Binance Smart Chain, we are giving them heavy exposure to this helps bootstrap Binance Smart Chain. So that's what we're doing, and that's and there's 10 or 20 more projects next week. So we'll try to continue to give them more exposure.
Wow. Okay, that's a pretty serious pace of projects coming through. Very interesting. So before we move forward, we've got some questions that are coming in from the audience that we want to get in front of you, CZ, if that's okay.
Sure.
One question here is about: are there any industries or any segments of markets that you think could be suited for Binance Smart Chain? So I guess looking at performance is something you were talking about earlier. Can you maybe think of any specific areas that could be very interesting for Binance Smart Chain?
Sure. Well, so my understanding of trading is a high performance it requires high performance systems. Without high performance systems, then you don't get liquidity because look, if you're going to pay like $20, $40 for one transaction as fees, you're not going to get that high volume. I think trading is one of those things. I think just because of Binance, we do have this background of trading, even though today both on the centralized and decentralized exchanges. So I do think trading is probably one of those things that's very obvious. I think for things that's less system intensive, like say potentially auctions, but auctions towards the end of the auction, people may try to overbid each other. The performance requirements for that is actually quite high. So I think auction markets are probably good for like things like NFTs, which are in turn maybe good for games, etc., like virtual weapons or virtual assets, etc. So so I think there's a lot. Anything that, to be honest, I think anything that actually goes down to like mass consumer applications do require high performance. So that's what we build Binance Smart Chain for.
So fit for scaling, I guess, something that requires a lot of usability and performance is well suited to build on this.
Yes.
Okay, so then another question that's come in is about how projects can kind of get involved and at what stage. If a project is an idea at the moment and they haven't actually built something yet to necessarily migrate over, can they get funding for that kind of early stage development to build on Binance Smart Chain?
I would say it's possible. That's definitely more difficult than when you have a more concrete or some concrete stuff like code or some prototypes, etc. We do engage projects at all levels, and also in the earlier projects typically will have less, probably will get a smaller grant to get their ideas sort of solidified and sort of made more concrete. So we do have we do have a very good process in different stages now. So we have Binance X, which basically just give out grants. They typically give out like a couple $1,000s to like a few tens of thousands of dollars. So 15K, 30K type of grants. And that's just a grant. So mostly it's for a developer to go away for like a couple of months to solidify their idea, etc. And then once they do that, if their idea is good and the test, whatever test they run do show that they have good market fit, a potential market fit, then they usually get a bigger grant to develop a prototype. So we do invest in different stages, but early stages is definitely considered. So just talk to get on the Binance website, submit an application, and we'll see.
Great. Okay.
So
one final question from me.
You announced today, CZ. Sorry to interrupt. Is it going to be a grant, or is it going to be an equity investment, or what form?
I think mostly, to be honest, in the decentralized world, I think there's not a lot of equity to talk about in most cases. So I do know that. So I'm actually not an investment expert. We have like a couple different. Well, we have a few different teams. Those are experts on investments, so they typically handle it. But I do know that we have invested in both token and also equities for both like Binance X, Launchpad. X mostly has been a grant. So it's just like no equity discussions. Just, hey, here's here's a couple $1,000 or $10,000, go work on it. And we typically would ask for like a verbal commitment or like a soft commitment that they're doing something related to Binance Chain or Binance Smart Chain. That's pretty much it. And then the larger checks typically have more strings attached. I actually don't know exactly how they're doing it now. But for DeFi projects, I would imagine, especially with anonymous founders, etc. So I would say it might be difficult to get equity in a lot of these situations. But we view this more of a ecosystem fund, where we want to fund to build the ecosystem. So anything that contributes to more activity, more users, more values being transferred on Binance Smart Chain or Binance Chain, then we're all for it.
Yeah, definitely very aligned with the Binance vision and mission. Josh, did you want to ask the question you had before?
No, I think we covered it actually.
Okay, let's move on then. So switching gears a little bit to more general DeFi. So the beauty of DeFi is that there is no central controller, but as a centralized platform, you do have to have the quality control standards. So when it comes to DeFi protocols, how are you going to control which DeFi protocols are available on Binance and Binance Smart Chain? And does this defeat the purpose of DeFi?
Okay, so I think there's two parts. On Binance.com, we do have full control for listing. So we are responsible for what we list, and people judge by how we list. And sometimes they are happy of a certain coin that we list. We're not perfect, but we do overall have very high quality projects on Binance.com, and so we're kind of in a bind right now. We want to maintain the high quality aspects of it, but we also want to list new coins that are relatively hot and popular now. So we probably will have covered our separate section with high risk or innovation, whatever, and do the risk disclosures appropriately. So that's on Binance.com. On Binance Smart Chain or on Binance Chain so on Binance.com, even on the centralized exchanges, we definitely will list a large number of DeFi coins or tokens. So that's the DeFi coins listed on the centralized exchange. On the decentralized exchanges, either on Binance Smart Chain or Binance Chain, we don't really control that process. There will be a large number of coins. Like anyone can submit a proposal, and the validators will vote it, and they do have a much lower threshold. And to be honest, that's an open community forum voting type of process. So the application is open. Anyone can view anyone else's application, and then the nodes vote. So that's the requirements there is definitely much lower. And to be honest, I think for DeFi, that's how it's supposed to work. It should be today on Ethereum, anyone can list anything, pretty much. Anyone can start a pool. So I think that's going to be the same way on Binance Smart Chain and Binance Chain.
Okay. So earlier, CZ, you said don't invest what you can't afford to lose. So invest with caution. One of the things that we're frequently seeing about DeFi is it makes people a lot of money, right? Do you see the DeFi space now as a similar period to what we saw in 2017 in terms of sentiment and market action?
I think yes. I think there's definitely similarities. I don't think we're as hot as 2017 just yet. I think we're it feels pretty much like September 2017. So it hasn't got to the highest point yet, but the sentiment in the market are similar, and also people's reactions are very similar. People's reactions are, "Hey, I bought this coin yesterday. Why has it not gone 10x today?" I think that's unhealthy. I think that's unhealthy to have that kind of expectations, and I mean also I think it's okay to have that kind of expectations if you're also understanding the risks. With high reward, typically there are high risks. If you're also okay with the expectation that it may go to zero tomorrow, and you'll be completely happy, I think that's okay. But I think there's a lot of unhealthy expectations in the sense that you must do 10x tomorrow, or even if it drops 20%, they'll be really unhappy. So that's kind of unhealthy, and that's very similar to 2017 in some respects. So I think as any new sector, so to be honest, I think, well, not to be honest, I know for sure that most of the DeFi projects will fail. That's just a matter of fact. So in any industry, most projects fail, most startups fail, most companies fail. So I think especially in the new industry, new sectors, this risk is there. So for anyone who's investing in DeFi, thinking that DeFi will make people a lot of money, you should also be prepared for the risk that you may lose everything completely. So this is, I've been saying this repeatedly, but people, there are just people who don't, the people who complain are exactly the people who don't listen to this type of advices. So yes, there are potential for higher rewards, but the risk is really, really high. The risk is there. So but at the same time though, even if we look at, I don't think DeFi will fail. I think as an industry, there will be a small number of projects or blockchains or smart contracts that will be hugely successful in the future. I think the core concept of DeFi does work. The very high yield rewards based on subsidies of new coins, that almost for sure will not last. So. Yeah, I mean, even if you look at ICO in 2017, there's a number of strong projects that came through that, and Binance BNB is one of them. So we're still doing relatively well today, and we have given our early BNB have given early investors hundreds of multiples, and it's still holding strong. So, and we're still developing. So there are in any industry, only a small number of projects will succeed, I think.
But the technology will stay. Yeah, absolutely. And then when it comes to risk and risk factors, I feel that there's a similarity to 2017 where we're not seeing as much education around DeFi just yet. There's materials out there and there's a lot of news, but when it comes to risk, there isn't too much out there that can help educate just all the new users that are coming into the space. So hopefully we start to see more of that over the coming months as well. And then regarding risk and things like custody and private key management, what are your thoughts there in terms of any advice or any general thoughts about moving between centralized and decentralized offerings?
Sure. I think those two they're very different products. So if you're able to hold your own key securely, so if you can, if you never download files to your computer, you're never gonna get a virus on your computer. You have secure backups which are encrypted in a way that only you can decrypt, so that if your computer breaks, you will not lose the key. And if something happens to you, you have a way to give that to your kids or your loved ones. Then I think you should by all means hold your own key. And if you don't need to trade that often. But if you're a type of person that, hey, I may forget my password if I don't use my account for 6 months, and then I need to reset it. If you're that type of person, then you probably do want to use a centralized service. The centralized services allow you to reset passwords, have a customer support you can call, etc. From an investment point of view, there's also different risks. If you look at IEOs, which happens on centralized exchanges, the exchanges do have to provide credibility backing on the projects. Because if there's a lot of rankings on how well projects do through different IEOs, and Binance typically do rank very highly on those comparisons, and so right now we're pushing pushing new projects through a new service called Binance Launch Pool. And when we do that, we do have to somehow to a large extent, put our credibility behind some of those projects. So going through a centralized exchange to get this yield farming benefits, there is, in theory, should be less risk, or at least the centralized exchanges do have their credibilities tied to it, given that there's a lot of centralized exchanges which do have very poor reputations. But that's generally, in general, that's better than anyone can issue a new token on a decentralized blockchain. So there are different levels of risks. But still, both are quite risky.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So I think this is the very, very last question. If we can try and wrap this one up quickly, a general bit of advice from you, CZ. How do you pick a CeFi versus DeFi product? What would your thinking be in trying to articulate that to a new user?
So I wouldn't actually pick CeFi over DeFi or vice versa. I would really just look at a small number of projects and just stick with a small number of projects that you know deeply. So instead of investing in a lot of different projects, I would say don't put all your money in one. That's also highly risky. But somewhere between 5 to 10 projects that you can follow with a reasonable degree of closeness. So you understand what the projects do. You can follow the founders on Twitter or elsewhere. You know what's happening to the project. You understand what the project's doing. You can relate when you read a different piece of news. If that impacts that project in an indirect way, you can relate to that type of news. So if you can do that, then do invest in the project, in those type of projects. But don't invest. I typically don't recommend people invest in more than 10 coins, 10 different type of projects, because it's hard to follow more than 10 projects. And I wouldn't recommend people to invest just one, because just one is highly risky. So that's kind of my advice. It may not be a very good advice for everyone. Everyone's situation is different, but I think that if people follow that for most people, it should be good advice.
Super, thank you.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that is the end of our Q&A time for today, unfortunately. And CZ, thank you so much for joining us. Feel free to leave any more comments or tweet your thoughts out if you have anything else to add. And we are super excited about the upcoming Binance Smart Chain developments and the role that we are playing in the DeFi space. So hope everyone enjoyed hearing from CZ, and thanks again.
Thanks for
Great
having
stuff.
me.
Thank you, CZ.
Yeah, and thank everyone for listening.
Yep. Cool. So we are almost halfway through the program, and it feels like we have really blazed through so far. Super interesting content. So before we move on to our next session, we do want to remind everyone who's watching live that you can tweet this live stream link along with your current thoughts on DeFi for a chance to win some BNB. And don't forget to hashtag World of DeFi. Josh, can you share what's coming up next?
Absolutely. So this next session is a two-part workshop, which is pretty hands-on, and it aims to give you the knowledge you need to get involved in DeFi. Our speakers for this workshop will be Tech Chia, who leads our Binance X team. He's dedicated to working with developers to foster innovation on the Binance platform and in the blockchain ecosystem at large. Viktor Radchenko, the founder of Trust Wallet, one of the largest decentralized wallets, which recently hit about 5 million users. And of course, Sarah Austin from Kava, a leading DeFi lending platform and one of the earliest innovators in BNB staking. So Sarah, over to you.
All right, thank you, Josh. It's a pleasure to be here, and this two-part workshop is going to be great. So thanks to everybody out there who's tuning in today. And this is the DeFi workshop that you all have been waiting for as part of the Binance DeFi Summit. My name is Sarah. I'm from Kava, and I'm coming to you from Silicon Valley. Kava is a cross-chain DeFi lending platform which provides stablecoins and loans to users of digital assets. And if you want to hit me up on Twitter, I will be taking some questions. Binance is taking questions. This is an interactive workshop, so we have part of a Q&A portion that follows that you're going to want to participate in. Without further ado, thank you so much for joining me today as we explore the wheres and wherefores of some of the industry top DeFi products and services. You will leave this session with immediate insights on how to earn passive income with DeFi. So let's jump right in. Let's be real. Passive income is one of those topics that always gets people really excited. And today's DeFi products give people new ways to boost their income without expecting or expending too much time or effort. It's a great financial opportunity for those looking to build a steady income stream, and the barriers to entry are lower than ever. However, there's an incredible number of projects and tokens that are announced on nearly a daily basis, and it can be difficult to select the trusted projects that are worth investing in. So if you're interested in DeFi, but you're not sure where to begin, then you're in the right place. So right now I'm going to hand it over to Tech Chia. He's the head of Binance X, and he will be walking you through some of the main project categories within the DeFi space and the tools that you can leverage to boost your earnings, as well as some of the most influential projects in decentralized finance. Tech has played the role of investor, entrepreneur, and product manager, and a software engineer in Silicon Valley for many years. So now let's hear from Tech. Hi, Tech. Why don't you say hello to the audience?
Hi, everyone. My name is Tech from Binance. And with this workshop today, I'm here to help you get a high-level understanding of what DeFi is. And hopefully after this presentation, you'll be encouraged to dig into DeFi more and perhaps even participate in these DeFi protocols yourself. The agenda for today, I'll be starting out with giving a quick intro about DeFi, and then I'll go through the different classes of DeFi protocols that are getting traction in the market. And then I'll talk about some common DeFi concepts that may be important to understand. And then I'll end with how Binance is helping our users get involved in this new exciting world of DeFi with some of the products we've launched very recently. DeFi, if you don't already know, stands for decentralized finance, and you can simply think of it as financial markets and financial instruments implemented on the blockchain. And I think it's useful to quickly rehash some of the properties that the blockchain technology brings to the finance world. Blockchains are trustless by virtue of it being decentralized, so you don't have to trust any centralized entities to run these financial markets. It's also open and accessible and democratizing in a sense that a person in India or Africa has the same access to these financial markets and instruments as someone sitting on Wall Street or in Hong Kong or London. And these markets are totally transparent and verifiable by anyone with a computer. And last but not least, smart contracts are composable, which means that each DeFi protocol could serve as a building block for other protocols. And this is an important reason why DeFi is innovating so rapidly. For this workshop, I'll be going through these 4 classes of DeFi protocols that are getting a lot of traction with users today. The DEXs, lending protocols, derivatives, and yield management services. So DEXs basically stands for decentralized exchanges, and there are a few different models of DEXs out there. The first one is the order book model, which is very similar to how Binance.com operates, where users submit buy and sell orders and a matching engine matches those orders. The Binance DEX is an example of an order book decentralized exchange. The next model is known as the DEX liquidity aggregator. And this model involves a smart contract that would aggregate liquidity by splitting or routing orders across multiple DEXs. An example of an aggregator would be the popular One-Inch exchange, which a project that Binance has invested in. And lastly, and perhaps the model that has gotten the most amount of attention recently, is known as the automated market maker model, often abbreviated as AMMs or known as liquidity pools. So I'll talk more about AMMs or liquidity pools here. In an AMM pool, a user trades or swaps tokens or assets with a smart contract instead of with other users. And this smart contract holds pools of two or more tokens that users can swap with. And the price of the token that the user is swapping for is determined by a formula that's based on the relative ratio of the tokens in that pool. With this mechanism, as long as there are tokens in the pool, there's always liquidity and users can always trade or swap tokens with the contract. This AMM mechanism requires two types of participants to actually make it work. The first is liquidity providers, who are actually people who supply tokens or liquidity into the smart contract pool. And the second class of participants is called arbitragers that help the AMM formula quote a price that closely tracks the true market price of the tokens in the pool. And these arbitragers actually take advantage of profitable arbitrage opportunities that actually help rebalance the token ratios in the pool, which in turn helps the formula calculate the correct price for token swaps. In short, the AMM model is an elegant way to provide persistent liquidity and fair prices for token swaps or exchanges. Some of the popular AMM pools out there are Uniswap, Balancer, and Curve. You may have heard of Uniswap, which has kind of become the poster child of the DeFi world. And they've accumulated a lot of liquidity in their AMM pools. Next, we're going to talk about lending protocols. And these are protocols that are essentially creating money markets on the blockchain, which are short-term loan marketplaces. The first kind of loans are known as collateralized loans. And these are loans that are fully collateralized by token assets, and they're often over collateralized due to the volatility of crypto. So it works by having a borrower depositing a token asset as collateral and taking out loan in another token asset. And the use case here is for a borrower is to actually maybe, number one, use it for short-term working capital. Number two, someone could want to leverage on their existing tokens to take on a long position if they think the token value is going to appreciate. The other type of loans is a fairly new invention called flash loans. These are loans that are uncollateralized. And these are loans that can be borrowed, but also have to be returned in the same transaction. So in between borrowing and returning the loan, one could participate in other DeFi protocols by calling their smart contracts. And this is possible due to the composability of DeFi protocols. Flash loans are often used to take advantage of arbitrage opportunities in DeFi marketplaces, which, as discussed earlier, actually helps AMM pools price their tokens correctly. I've been glossing over a lot of details, but you could easily find more detailed explanations on the internet. Some of the popular lending protocols are Aave, who I believe is the first to come up with the concept of a flash loan, Maker, and Kava. Next, we're going to talk about derivatives. And derivatives are essentially financial contracts or instruments that derive their value from one or more underlying assets. In the DeFi world, one of the derivative instruments are called synthetic assets. And as the name suggests, these are crypto assets that represent or mirror other assets, which could be other crypto tokens or off-chain assets like gold, fiat currencies, or even company equities. These are typically minted by smart contracts that are backed by a collateral pool. And with these synthetic assets, anyone who holds these assets or tokens could get exposure to these underlying assets by simply holding these tokens. Another class of derivative contracts that have been around in the crypto space is called perpetual swaps. These are essentially non-expiring futures contracts. And Binance.com actually offers these contracts on our exchange. And these are now, this allows people to gain exposure to long and short positions on the assets, on different kinds of assets. And these are now available in the DeFi space. The last type of derivative that's gotten some traction is mutual insurance contracts. And these are community-owned insurance pools that protect against or insure against real-world events. And some of the popular derivative protocols are Synthetix and Nexus Mutual. I would encourage you to check them out. Next, I'm going to talk about yield management services or protocols. And these are actually tools or utilities that help users optimize yield over multiple DeFi protocols. You can think of them as kind of a decentralized robo-advisor. And very often, not only do these services optimize yield for you, they also abstract out a lot of the complexities from these different DeFi protocols. And they often come with a nice dashboard to help you visualize the yields you're getting. And one of the benefits of aggregating user funds for deployment into these protocols is that you save on gas fees, which has become quite expensive on the Ethereum blockchain, largely due to the number of transactions people are doing on these DeFi protocols. Some of the popular yield management services you may have heard of is Yearn and Bella Protocol, which we're kind of launching with a new product called Launchpool, which I'll talk about later in this presentation. Next, I'll go through some of the common DeFi concepts, that you might have heard of. The first one is called yield farming, and it's a term that you may have been hearing a lot of these days. And people have also used the term liquidity mining, which basically means the same thing. And what it refers to is simply earning yields or interests when you supply liquidity to some of these DeFi protocols. The earnings could be in the form of native tokens, or the tokens that you actually supply liquidity in, like ETH or DAI. It's a concept called impermanent loss. It's important to kind of know about impermanent loss when you participate as a liquidity provider in some of these DeFi or AMM pools. I don't really have time to go into great details, but at a high level, impermanent loss describes the opportunity cost that's incurred when you lock tokens in an AMM pool, as opposed to just holding tokens in your own wallet. And the loss actually happens only when asset prices diverge from the original price levels when tokens were deposited into the pool. I would encourage you to read more about it, search for it on the internet, on Google. if you're serious about staking your tokens in AMM pools, as it affects the yields you'll be getting from these AMM pools. The next concept or thing you often hear about are oracles. And these are essentially services that inject off-chain data to smart contracts. And in the DeFi world, the data most commonly injected or used are market prices for tokens. But oracles could also supply data about real-world events like sports scores or weather information. As expected, this kind of market prices are important for derivatives, and oracle services are often used in those protocols. Finally, I want to introduce some of the products that Binance has recently launched that make it easy for users to participate in DeFi. The first one is known as DeFi staking, and this product actually makes it very easy for you to yield farm on DeFi protocols like Kava, Compound, and Curve. And you can do it directly from your Binance account by clicking, the Stake Now button and selecting a locked period. So I encourage you to check it out under the Savings tab in your Binance account. Next, we also recently launched a token swap pool where users could easily swap between stablecoins like Binance BUSD, USDT, and DAI. You could also participate as a liquidity provider and earn yields or share of the fees generated by swaps in the pool. I encourage you to check it out in that URL, binance.com/en/swap. We also launched a new service last week called Launchpool, where we introduce or help bootstrap a new DeFi protocol or service and allow Binance users to participate in yield farming simply by staking BNB, BUSD, or other tokens in their account with just a click of a button. The first project that we're launching with the Launchpool will be Bella Protocol, which is a new yield management service. And I'll encourage you to look into it under the savings section of your Binance account. Next, I'm going to talk about the Binance Smart Chain. And this is probably targeted more at developers that are watching this presentation. So the Binance Smart Chain is a new smart chain we just launched recently that's EVM compatible, meaning that it can run Ethereum smart contracts. And it bridges the Binance DEX, also known as Binance Chain, via cross-chain transfers between so you can do transfer of tokens between the Binance DEX and the Binance Smart Chain. And this allows you to take advantage of fast confirmations and DEX liquidity on the Binance DEX, as well as leverage smart contracts capability on the Binance Smart Chain. The Binance Smart Chain mainnet was launched at the end of August this year, which was pretty recent. And we're seeing DeFi protocol deploying on the Binance Smart Chain. And that includes Cream Lending, which is a lending protocol, and Spartan Swap, which is an AMM pool. For developers thinking of building on the Binance Smart Chain, please check out this article at this URL here. Last but not least, we have Trust Wallet, which is a very popular non-custodial multi-asset mobile wallet that is very, very easy to use. You can easily participate in a lot of these DeFi protocols that were mentioned using Wallet Connect. which basically involves just a scan of a QR code. In addition, you can also do token trades or swaps directly in Trust Wallet. Trust Wallet is one of the most popular wallets out there with over 5 million users. And Victor, the founder of Trust Wallet, will be presenting part 2 of this DeFi workshop. With that, I think my time is up, and I hope that you've gained a good high-level understanding of DeFi and its various protocols. Thanks so much for attending. And with that, I'll hand it over to Victor for part 2 of this workshop. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you, Tech, for being gracious enough to walk us through your workshop. In fact, Binance.com directly integrated with Kava to offer high yields on crypto assets to 100K plus users. Binance has currently done 2 rounds of fixed duration offerings, the first selling out in less than 30 minutes, and the second selling out in 60 seconds. Now we've taken a look at some of key Binance features, so let's jump into a few product demos with Trust Wallet's co-founder, Victor Richendo, who has been making some important integrations as of late. Victor is the founder of the multi-cryptocurrency wallet and D-app browser Trust Wallet, the official wallet of Binance. Victor created Trust Wallet to help make cryptocurrency more accessible to unlock its larger potential of allowing economic freedom. Hey, Victor, how are you? And thanks so much for joining us here today.
Hey guys, it's nice to be here. So let's just jump into the demos, and I'll just go around and share some exciting products in DeFi.
Sure, yeah, that's right. Let's just jump right in, shall we?
Sounds good. Yeah, so I think the best place to start and learn about some DeFi products is from DeFi Pulse, because it shows all the dynamics that's currently happening on the market. So in this case, you can explore how much each protocol has values locked in. So based on that, you can imagine, you can assume which project has more usage and more money being held in. Yeah, so I think there's tons of different products in different categories, and then we will just go over maybe like 5 or 6 products today. And then they all split into 5 categories, which is lending, DEXs, derivatives, and payments and assets. So we'll go over the 4th besides payments. And so I want to start from the DEX products. And I think the most popular product out there in the market right now is Uniswap, because it provides, automated liquidity protocol, which makes it trading on DeFi is much easier and less expensive for people. At the same time, provides better rates than other order book DEXs that existed on Ethereum before. So I think the biggest innovation that came from Uniswap is that they were able to build something that's called automated market making that allows people to provide liquidity, and then that liquidity will be used to do trades for the users who want to swap one token to another. It makes it much more efficient because there is no order book involved anymore. And then that makes it less expensive to run transactions, but at the same time, it has less slippage on transaction itself. And this is all accomplished by providing liquidity into the protocol itself. And then the logic is that so we can actually take a look at how this works in terms of the numbers. So the way Uniswap works, people are able to come in, put their liquidity, and then create these pairs that allows people to swap afterwards. So the more liquidity each pair has, the better the slippage will be in that case.
Yeah,
and then Uniswap, yeah.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, I was just going to say there's actually just so much happening in DeFi right now, especially in the month of August. And, the classic example that everyone is talking about right now is sushi, especially since it's become an example of what's exciting in DeFi. But if you're really trying to build decentralized financial infrastructure, then being a good fiduciary becomes really important. Uniswap and Balance are essentially the same thing. People post their money as liquidity, and it's used to market make pairs. And Curve's kind of the same thing, but for stable coins. But the market, making the curve is different because it's a stable coin versus volatile assets. So what Sushi did was they really filled in the gap where there wasn't a token being issued for Uniswap. So SushiSwap hijacked the users with the Sushi token to drop liquidity to drop to liquidity providers. So in your own words, Victor, like what is SushiSwap and how do you provide liquidity on Uniswap and what incentives are there to provide liquidity on Uniswap?
Yeah, correct. Oh, yeah, that was definitely a big social experiment with SushiSwap. What's going on? You can actually see on the graph right now that before this SushiSwap came in, this is where the liquidity was, and then it jumped over to almost 2 billion in locked value, and then after SushiSwap was launched, it almost came back to the previous values. I think what's interesting about that is that SushiSwap is trying to experiment with different token economics in which they wanted to launch their own token and then whoever were providing liquidity to Uniswap would be rewarded in their Sushi token when the Sushi token will be launched. And so token economics for SushiSwap protocol would be slightly different, where half of the liquidity percentage that liquidity providers earn, it would be around, instead of 0.3, it would be 0.25, and then 0.05 will go into buying the Sushi token and rewarding all the previous liquidity providers in the past. So it means that if you are providing liquidity before, you will be still earning rewards after you stop providing liquidity, which kind of gives a different incentives for people to provide liquidity on the protocols. And we can actually go over and do a small experiment and provide some liquidity to Uniswap. So I think the model is pretty simple. The swaps itself is very simple. So you can literally just select pairs you want to swap. And then you can automatically get all the funds back. They're pretty efficient in that term. And then another thing to mention is that all this market making protocols allows you to buy tokens through specific pairs. So sometimes you might not have specific pair like Ethereum to BUSD, but instead you have different pairs that allows you to jump over and route from wrap Ether to USDC, and then you receive BUSD in the end. And then there's lots of different variation that could come in. As you can see, just updated real time and added another pair to route. Yeah, so we can actually go over and provide some liquidity to test it out and see how it works. So in this case, if you wanted to provide liquidity for maybe DAI pair, all you need to do is just provide amount you want to provide to liquidity pool, and then it will split pair into providing both Ethereum and DAI. So in this case, you want to make sure you have both of the balances available there. And then once you confirm the transaction, this might take a little bit longer, but we're in DeFi, so we want to take a risk and try to push this transaction, which quite expensive right now on the Ethereum network. And so hopefully within a couple of seconds, we would have this transaction confirmed. And so what happens once you stake those funds, you will receive LP token, which allows you to have a share of the pool. And this is kind of how you get all the rewards based on how much trading happens. So if you're providing liquidity to Ethereum and DAI pair, whoever's going to be swapping and then going through this route, you will be able to receive 0.3% on your liquidity. There are some things that kind of risk when you provide liquidity in Uniswap. It's called impermanent loss. It means that if there is a high, if there's going to be a high like pricing on, or like how do you say it? So if you're going to have high small liquidity, but also high swings of prices, then you might have to lose some funds. So I think that's the biggest risk. But the more liquidity in the pool, the higher the chances you will be making money in this case. Yeah, and I think another, go ahead.
Oh, just everyone is asking that you show us how Trust Wallet is helping users by providing liquidity to them. So why don't you show us a taste of that?
Yeah, so I don't have Trust Wallet connected at the moment. I use desktop just for convenience for the recording, but usually you would do the same functionality on the mobile as well to provide liquidity in the same way. It's even easier on mobile because it's accessible to you at any time. You don't need to have all the extension installed. You just you do it right from the phone. Yeah. Yeah, I think that was a small demo on how to provide liquidity in Uniswap in the same way you could do swaps and stuff. And then one thing that came from Uniswap as well is that comparing to centralized exchanges, centralized exchanges take big responsibility to list any asset because they need to do due diligence. On decentralized exchanges, it's quite different because anyone could create any token and could provide liquidity to that specific token and could get started do trading. So in this case, it's permissionless, and all you need to do is just provide a smart contract. And this is also allowed by most of the DEXs out there in the market. Yeah, I think that's pretty much on the Uniswap side. So we're gonna jump into the new product, which is very similar to Uniswap, but I think when you use Uniswap and you wanna do trading on pairs like DAI to BUSD or USDC or USDT, I think the biggest challenge there is that the fees or slippage could be higher just because of the formulas that's used in Uniswap. And so there is a other project that's called Curve that's very optimized on just providing liquidity to stable coins because they would become more effective by using a different curve, which is just works really well with stable assets. I think that's the main use case. So in this case, we can also do a small demo where we'll try to swap 100 DAI to BUSD.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's give the demo to everybody. It'll be a second just to show them how to swap DAI to BUSD.
Yep, let me make sure the transaction fee are high and it goes through. So I think another thing to keep in mind, so whenever you interact with different smart contracts, there is 2 transactions usually involved. So the first transaction, you need to allow the smart contract to have, to give approval. So it means that for the smart contract to swap your DAI, you would need to give permission to a smart contract like Curve, and it will have ability in the next transaction to do the exact swap afterwards. So in the first transaction, we approved it, and now we will be doing a swap. So it might take some time to do this, but we can come back once it's done. Yeah, and so one of the things that Curve does is it actually helps users to not lose money because they're using different kind of model to provide liquidity. In this case, there's almost none or zero impermanent loss. It means if you're providing DAI, the chances that you will lose money is pretty low. So in this case, you'll be getting the rewards much higher. And I think it's better to get started with such products than something else. Oh, I think the swap happened, I believe, or it's still happening. Yeah, so I think that was pretty interesting.
Right.
Yeah, so I think those are the 2 main products in DEX space that kind of covers most of the use cases at the moment. So swap, highly correlated assets, and then just assets that have like different liquidity.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks for showing us Curve. And let's go into maybe a little bit of the history and background of DeFi. It's been around for a while, even though people are just hearing about it now for the first time for some people. But, as you know, Maker is one of the first DeFi projects, the Maker protocol. So why don't we give them a little bit of a background on Maker, and then we'll jump into Compound.
Yeah, totally. So I think Maker was one of the first kind of DeFi projects in the market. So they were, trying to experiment as well a lot and see like which model will work. And their main product is allowing people to generate stable DAI through their smart contracts, and that will. And DAI goal would be always try to be equal to $1. So that's the idea. And so in order to make that happen, there is lots of logic behind it. But the main use case is by providing collateral, you would be able to create a CDP. In this case, you back the generated DAI with a specific percentage. Usually, it's at least like 150 collateralized position. So in this case, even if the price of the collateral you're putting like Ethereum goes down, it's still stable as a DAI itself. And then there's also stability fee involved, which allows people to earn kind of like to pay the debt on the generated DAI itself. Yeah, and just to give an idea like what the formula is, you could basically calculate it based on the amount of the CDP you create and the days that come in, and then you pay the back the fee itself, the stability.
And that term, CDP, was originated from Maker, actually. It stands for Collateralized Debt Position, just for anybody who's unfamiliar.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think another product that's out there in the market, so we'll jump into the new category, which is lending. There's quite a few products. So it's Compound, there's Aave, and then Cream, another one. So he's trying to try different experiments to see which one works. So in the Compound, there is quite a few assets that's only available. It's only 6 assets that's currently available. And so I think the idea is to be kind of like a bank where, decentralized bank, where anyone could come in and lend their money to the protocol. And then there's people who can take the money and use it for their own purpose. And so I think the demo we'll show today is, imagine you have some funds that have available to you. Let's say you have DAI, and then you want to make some money out of it. So usually at the bank, you'll get like really small percentage, less than $1. And then if you can see, the DAI currently has 3% APY. So it means that if you're going to be providing enough DAI, you would be able to earn this amount of percent. Yeah, but at the same time, if you have this DAI staked on the Compound protocol, you would be able to also get the borrow in the coins that you would like to. So in this case, imagine you could borrow some other assets like Ethereum for your own purpose. So then you just need to stake that coin to get it back. And then there's a bigger percentage on the borrow side, just because you need to pay the fees for people who are supplying to the market. Yeah, and the change. Yeah.
Oh, I don't want to interrupt you.
Yeah, and also another thing to keep in mind is that the rates are very dynamic. So it means that if there is enough liquidity on specific token, then the price will, if there is too much supply, then most likely the interest rates will go down. And then if it's too much, then the rate goes up. So I think we did see really dynamic rates when there was lots of farming happening. So in this case, some people were trying to farm one token but the other. And so the supply and borrow rates were actually, or supply and demand was like going from right to left quite a bit.
And why would someone use Compound? What are the main use cases?
Yeah, I think for main use cases, currently, if you look at crypto, it's always trading. So I think most people, what they try to do is try to take some leverage and then use that leverage to put some money into some positions to do trading. So for the most part, there's quite a few other examples where some people try to do flash loans, do automated trading, and lots of different use cases that I'm not very familiar with. But I think those are the most popular ones. Alrighty, cool. I think that's pretty much it on the Compound side. So I want to talk more about another project, which is Synthetix. So I think the idea behind the Synthetix is to create different synths, which basically represent virtual assets for anything that's out there in the market. So imagine that you wanted to trade Bitcoin. So you would be able to create a Bitcoin through creating a Synthetix. So the way it works, first, you would need to create something that's called CUSD. So CUSD is collateralized asset on Synthetix protocol. And in order to create CUSD, you would need to stake your funds or generate CUSD with 700% collateral. So it means that in order to generate 1,000 CUSD, you would need to put $7,000 worth of Ethereum. The main purpose for that is just to make sure of the security of the protocol itself. So even if the price of SNX goes down, then you would be still able not to lose money. And then all the collateralization comes from SNX token itself. So it means that if a number of different assets being generated, you would need to have SNX in order to create those positions. Yeah, and so I think one of the coolest part is that lots of people create different assets that allows you to create virtual assets of like DeFi, for example. So in this case, instead of like buying different DeFi tokens, you would be able to buy a specific token that represents those other assets in the bucket itself.
That's interesting. Would I be able to trade Tesla stock on a Synthetix?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. So yes, you can, maybe in the future, but I think we're really close to make that happen. Even though you won't be able to trade the stock or the share of the Tesla itself, but you would be able to speculate on the price of the Tesla stock itself. So it means that someone could come in and say like, okay, we're able to provide an oracle which provides the price for the Tesla, and we would be able to create a pair in which you would be able to trade it, but at the same time, you're not trading the real Tesla asset because there is lots of legal requirements to make that happen. But instead, you would be able to kind of trade a ticker that has the pricing associated and provided by the decentralized oracles. I think that's kind of the future we would like to be living in, where all the assets are virtual and you would be able to have exposure to them easily on the protocols itself. That's definitely like very fascinating what's happening right now in the market. Right, and then we can also go over a little bit about the interface that's provided by Synthetix. So they have this pretty simple interface which allows you to mint all the CUSDT tokens that I mentioned, which is quite simple. As long as you have a SNX token, you would be able to generate it. But at the same time, you burn them in order to unlock SNX back when you need it. Quite simple. Yeah, another topic that's very important to the market is, okay, we're in DeFi, so it means that there's lots of risk involved in different operations, smart contracts, and there's lots of risk associated with the smart contract itself, because it's hard to tell if the smart contract is secure or not, even though you go over through like lots of different security audits, and there are still things that could be missed. And as you know, in real life, we always have insurance for things that we do. If you have a car, you most likely have insurance, and then we have it for life and other things. Same thing, what's Nexus Mutual is trying to do is building decentralized protocol for insurance. So in that case, if you have your money on some of the protocols like Compound, you would be able to say, okay, I don't want to take a risk. I want to insure my funds. So in this case, you can say, okay, I want to insure some amount of, let's actually go over and show you an example how that works. Even though I'm not a member of this Nexus Mutual yet, so I don't have all the functionality I need in order to
it's perfect, actually. Just do your best. Actually, we've got live questions coming in from the audience, such as, how does insurance quote calculations work on Nexus Mutual?
All right, cool. So it's very interesting. So the way the calculation works is it's still not fully decentralized in a way, but we're getting there. So the whole idea about this is, in order to calculate the quote, you would need to have a legal entity right now, which are based in UK for Nexus Mutual. And so their legal entity are able to identify what is the risk for every smart contract. So they're able to review and see, based on the team, smart contract quality, they would set a rate that allows you to say, okay, if I want to, let's say, insurance like 1-inch protocol, they estimate what's the cost is based on their legal requirements back in the UK. So in this case, in order to insure my funds that go through 1-inch, you'd be able to buy a quote, in which case you will specify a number of days you want to quote, and then amount that you want to insure. So in this case, whenever anything happens to this smart contract, you would be able to come in and say, okay, I'm being hacked, or this smart contract, had some issue, funds are locked, burned, whatever happened. You would be able to come in and actually claim the rewards. So, which is still tricky. It doesn't guarantee you that you will get the money back, because there's a governance process in which you would need to file a claim and say, this is what happened, this is the details. And so the governance will actually decide either they want to give you money back for that or not. So this is still a tricky part. I think it would be better if it was automated. So in the case, if you can verify that event actually happened, you would get your money back automatically. But it still involves the human process to do voting. So I think it's all based on incentives as well for the governance itself. Yeah, but if you think about like fundamentals, if you don't have insurance products on the DeFi or any other blockchain space, it would be a little bit difficult, because we do always need to leverage in insurance in this case, and have some insurance for protocols we use. Yeah, I think
that'll help.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say, and that's going to help the entire industry. Another thing we're seeing a lot come in on social media right now, everyone's asking about Yearn, because the famous Wi-Fi token, YFI token.
Oh yeah, we'll definitely get to Yearn pretty soon.
Okay.
I think the next product will be reviewing there. So one thing to also add to Nexus Mutual is that because of all these DeFi protocols, it's all on chain, and then you would be able to verify all the claims that anyone could do. So in this case, we can easily see liquidity on Uniswap through like different stats, and this is all pulled from the blockchain. So there is no way for them to manipulate the data, because it's all available and parsed from blockchains. So I think this is currently, you can also see how much each protocol being covered in terms of funds. So I think, as you mentioned about Yearn, right? So we can see that Yearn actually has the biggest amount of coverage right now. So people, put more quotes now for insuring the Yearn contracts, which makes sense. And we'll go over that. Okay. So next up would be Yearn. Yearn is actually a pretty exciting project, and this is pretty much $1 billion company. That's kind of how it looks. This is simplified buttons. And I will talk about like what each button does on a high level, and then we'll explain, because most people know Yearn by their token, which called Wi-Fi or Wi-Fi, so many different sounds to it. And then
don't confuse with the other ones though.
Yes, there are so many different clones of Wi-Fi token. It just like the adding like extra I and stuff. So very confusing part. But so I think we can probably talk about like what Yearn Finance is as a product. And then I have this like graph that kind of explains each of them in very detailed information, because Yearn itself is a simple product by itself, like as it looks, but behind the scenes, it does lots of different things for people to optimize their earnings. So let's say like for the earn, before, if you wanted to do farming, yield farming on different protocols, you would need to go directly to each of the protocols, put your money in, and then wait until you can get some tokens back, and then you get them back, you go and sell on Uniswap and so on. So instead, Yearn was about like, okay, how do we optimize this process? How do we make sure that we have one strategy and then anyone could put money into it, and we will use those funds to directly put into yield farming. So in this case, it just optimizes and makes this as a bucket. So it's similar to like Uniswap, where people just provide liquidity. It didn't worry about like who is buying, who is selling based on an order book. It just kind of simple concept for that. And then that's what pretty much Yearn does for every aspect of it. So they want to make it easier for people to do yield aggregation, swap between assets, return on mining liquidity and lending protocols, and then even provide insurance based on Nexus Mutual. So in this case, it just provides a simpler interface that come in and say like, I want to insure this, and put your money, and insurance is done. So I think that's kind of the idea behind Yearn Finance. And so the way Yearn Finance launched their token was pretty cool. There was a person, Andrew, who said like, okay, we need to, because he was the admin key for the smart contracts and he wanted to make it more decentralized. And so he launched this token that kind of blew up in price, and people just like speculate so much about it. And so the cool process about that, so he kind of did like fair launch of token and giving that to people who are using on the platform right now. So in this case, they're governing the protocols and security of the protocols itself. Yeah.
Great. I mean, people are really excited about Yearn Finance, but I'm also getting questions from the audience asking about a BSwap overview and more information on Launchpool.
Oh yeah, we'll get to those pretty soon. We
there
have
are so many questions. There are so many questions coming in, everybody. We are answering them. We are not going to be able to get to everybody, but we are listening and reading all of them.
Yeah. So let's go over like at least one product on Yearn Finance. I think one thing we can see, it's the vaults. So the coolest idea about the vaults is that you can build your own strategy and propose it to the governance. So in this case, if you have Ether, you'll be able to supply and earn the interest on the Ether here. The rates are pretty crazy right now, just because there is quite a big demand for it, and then there's lots of incentives just built in different protocols to make this happen. There's lots of risk involved. So try to like do a little bit of research before trying to jump in and like put your money into this protocol. So it's always be cautious. Always try to do an analysis and see how other people are using. Maybe review smart contracts first from someone who knows how they work. Yeah. So I think Yearn Finance just covers lots of different products out there, and we mentioned about like insurance and then different vaults. Alrighty. So next product we're gonna cover, and I'll probably start gonna pass this over to you. So what are we gonna do today? We're gonna connect Trust Wallet to Kava app, and we'll be able to create CDP, and then or just repay the CDP itself. Okay, so I'm gonna be using Trust Wallet. Let me just connect first.
Yeah, sure. So what Victor can do, or anyone out there, what you guys can do is move your BNB into Kava to borrow the stablecoin USDX, and then manage your risk and reward by repaying some of that debt by adding more BNB. Kava is setting up ways for users to earn money on all of their crypto assets. Different users are going to have different risk appetites on Kava. The more you mint, the more you make. With a given amount of money, you're going to earn more, but you're also going to be taking on more risk, or you can take on less risk, but you won't get as high of returns. But either way, it's really important to manage your risk so that you can repay your debt at any time. And at the end of the day, Kava allows ways for you to earn passive income. Either way, it's going to be on multiple assets. Users right now can create a CDP. Businesses can integrate Kava to provide the functionality to their users, such as Binance.com. In the short term, Kava is adding more assets for users. And in the long term, we're going to have a better experience for users to intuitively manage their risk and rewards.
Yeah, totally. So now I have, my wallet from Trust Wallet connected to Kava. So I did it through Wallet Connect. And so now we're able to pull up my address right here. And then yesterday I created a CDP. So now you can see this is my borrowing limit. This is how like the liquidation price for the funds that I have locked in. At the same time, we can also do more BNB locked in into the Kava itself. So we can even try to do this demo. So the way it works, we have the Trust Wallet connected here. So we say, okay, we have one BNB that we want to lock on a smart contract. So we'll do the lock. As you can see, it will show transaction signing on my phone. So I just need to confirm my transaction. And you see transactions broadcasting. So once this is confirmed, we'll be able to see our updated balance right here.
Right. Yeah, and Kava's all about finding out more ways for users to earn more with their crypto, and Kava is here. And we will continuously innovate new ways for users to earn more with their crypto. But we really got to get the audience what they're asking for. They want to know more information about BSwap. They want an overview on that and Launch Pool.
Yep, sounds good. Great. So we confirmed the transaction. So I think we're ready to go to the next product then.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. So next thing I want to talk about is, just not like with the product itself, but, the opportunities that out there in the market. So with, all these protocols out there in the market now, what possible now? Anyone could come in and use this permissionless protocols, which is really amazing, because before, if you want to use some banking API, you would need to, have licenses, have a company, do lots of due diligence. It was like pretty complicated. So now with DeFi protocols, it's all available on permissionless blockchains. Anyone could just come in, have a wallet and connect to it and do any type of operations that are available in a smart contract or the blockchain itself. And so what Binance were able to do is build DeFi staking to provide simple interface for their users, which is quite great, because now they were able to tap into different protocols that, they're permissionless. So in this case, now if you have USDT on Binance, you would be able to provide liquidity on Curve through USDT. So it means that you don't need to go to Curve if you don't have MetaMask, you don't have all the tooling to make this happen, because it's now much simpler from Binance itself. And so it also allows you to connect to different protocols like Kava from here that we went through the demo, and also the Compound, which is quite nice. So, if you don't want to manage all the risk yourself, you could just, use Binance for that.
It really is. It's just so easy. I mean, look at that interface. It's great. Like, it's right there, simple. It's working, and the users are loving it. So that's the beauty of APIs.
Exactly. And, the cool thing is, if you think, you could do it yourself, you can always go to the, smart contracts and use the dApps in order to make that happen. But I think it's important to have options. So as long as you have more options and use different protocols, this is where we see that decentralization. So you don't need to be stuck to a specific product for your whole life because there's nothing available. But with this, you just have so many different options to, distribute your finance and, funds that you have. All right, so let's move into other protocols. So we talked a little bit about, Curve and how that works. And so also Binance built same alternative on a centralized exchange, which allows you to do this kind of functionality. Same concept where, if you don't know how to manage your risk and don't know how to use decentralized finance, you'd be able to kind of perform the same functionality here. So we will actually try to provide some liquidity as we did previously before. So let's say I want to provide liquidity to USDT, pair, and BTC and BUSD. So I'll be able just to say, okay, I want to provide it, done. So because it's a centralized exchange, it just makes it much simpler to do all these operations. At the same time, you have ability to do swaps to any token that you would like to. So let's say we want to swap, all the USDT to BUSDT. Done. It just instant swaps. Very easy. So in this case, all the liquidity managed by the Binance from the both sides of the pair that you're doing the swaps.
Very easy.
Yeah. And so I think the most exciting thing that's started to happen since last week is, yield farming and just farming of tokens on Binance. So in this case, before, if you wanted to farm tokens on decentralized exchanges, then you would need to be a whale in order to make significant amount of tokens that are actually worth doing anything. Because, transactions is very high in Ethereum. So it means that in order to make $100, you probably need to make at least 300 because the other 100 will go for paying network fees just for one or two transactions. So now Binance is doing liquidity mining for a token, in which case if you provide liquidity for BNB, BUSD, or ARPA, you would be able to earn the token based on the proportionally to the tokens you stake, which is quite exciting. So in this case, you earning the APY from staking Binance, but at the same time, you're earning the token that will be available within a week or so. And then rewards are given every single day, pretty much. Cool. I think that's pretty much on the side of Binance products.
And then let's jump into Trust Wallet. We don't have much time left, but let's get some, maybe, do you want to talk about more about smart chains on Trust Wallet? Any announcements?
Yeah, so when CZ was talking about this, I was like, hey, let me try this dApp that was available to me. So the Spartan protocol, so they just launched it and they have this interesting concept with burning. So I actually went to try it out like just before the call, before this. So we actually will try to do a simple burn just to play around with it. This is very risky, so don't try it unless you understand what's going on. So the idea is that in order to claim Sparta, you can actually do it and say, okay, so this is interesting experiment as well. In order to do initial distribution of tokens, Spartan what is doing, they burning BNB in order to receive Spartan initial tokens. So very similar to like liquidity mining, where you provide liquidity to a specific pair, you get the rewards back. Same idea is here. You provide BNB to burn, and then you will be able to receive some proportion back to the token. So in this case, we'll try to confirm this now, and let's see if that works. So I think the block time is around 3 seconds, so it does like few iterations, and once it's done, we'll be able to see updated information on how much we received. Yeah, so once it's happening, and I want to just mention, oh, I think it's done. So now we have, we received the Spartan tokens. Great. Now it's in our wallet. Very simple. So that's kind of how decentralized, networks works now. And then one thing we would like to mention is that on Trust Wallet, we'll launch support for Binance Smart Chain. So in this case, if you have some, funds on Trust Wallet now, you would be able to go and explore all the decentralized applications like Spartan Swap and many more that will be coming to Smart Chain itself. So feel free to download now. It's available on both App Store and Google Play. And now we have all the support, that browser, Wallet Connect, all the available protocols that needed for the users to really enjoy the DeFi.
Okay,
yeah,
here's a Twitter question. Any new listings coming out on Trust Wallet?
Yeah, I think so. The way we look at it, so we have a pretty simple model where we want to list all the tokens, all the coins that needed for the users. So we have a process where any blockchain we would need to integrate first, and then we will get it listed on Trust Wallet. So I think there's two models where we need to integrate blockchain, which is usually more complicated in terms of the technical work that involved in order to make it happen. So usually it takes, usually months for one blockchain to integrate, but we usually pretty quick whenever like there is a demand for a specific coin from our community. And then there's also tokens that support it on different blockchains, which will also do some type of moderation in order for them to show up in Trust. So this is all available. You could go through GitHub process to upload a new token logo information that will be available for anyone to use in Trust Wallet.
Yeah, just going to throw USDX out there. That's one of them.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we have enough time for one question from the audience. I was able to sprinkle some in there as we were going, but let me just ask you, this is the number one question that everyone's asking, and this is something we've already touched on before, but everyone wants to know, how can the fees for DeFi be lowered?
So I think it's a very tricky question, right? Bitcoin fees were really cheap before it got to the point where there is more usage and more demand, but at the same time there is a cost to security, right? So it's always tricky to find where the cost or where's the technical limitations to the protocol itself. So currently, when we talk about like proof of work, I think limitation lays into the proof of work technology itself, because it's limited to how much it could proceed. So in this case, the transaction costs go up because we have limited amount of gas limit in order to process transactions. So, in order to make transactions lower, we just need to have better technology being developed, and that's being developed for the past year. So in this case, there's more alternatives now, and we need to also decentralize in terms of different blockchains and then connect them with each other, which has different security models. So in this case, some blockchains might be faster, might be some protocols based on layer 2 solutions, or maybe ZK rollups, which allows you to make transactions much cheaper. So I think it's all about just technology being developed and kind of not compromising on security, but at the same time, just we can have the same type of security, but just using better technology in order to make it happen. One example with the Smart Chain, using a different consensus mechanism to make transactions faster and then have a bigger gas limits on the block. So in this case, you can have way more throughput than Ethereum does at the moment.
And may I just throw out there Kava, the independent, standalone,
Yeah, exactly.
purpose-built blockchain, cross-chain from the ground up, specifically built to solve this problem with Ethereum, or at least built with that in mind. Okay, so we only have about 30 seconds left, so I don't think that's enough for one last question, but
yeah.
I mean, if you can answer in 30 seconds, how do you find the best DeFi project? Is that possible? If not, we'll just close this.
I think you always explore, right? So you always try to go to DeFi balls, try to explore different projects that are trying to build technology that provides value. So as long as the project provides value, this is the projects you want to be interested in following. There is quite a bit, on Twitter, and then you can just find from different people who are in DeFi space as well. But I think DeFi balls is a good way to start. Or CoinMarketCap, where it has lots of DeFi projects out there available to you to review and see their white paper, and etc.
Yeah, and DeFi Pulse is always a great place to check out as well. With that, it pretty much wraps it up. I'm Sarah. Victor, thank you so much for joining us. And thanks everyone out there on social media for sharing and asking your questions. I'm going to hand it now over to Josh and Leah, and you guys can take it from here.
Thank you so much to our lovely speakers, Sarah, Victor, and Tech. And thank you to everyone who's engaging with our streams on YouTube and Twitter. We hope everyone enjoyed these workshops and took away a lot of useful information. So we are down to our last 2 sessions for the day, and our next session will be from our sponsor, Bella Protocol.
Yes, indeed. A huge thanks to the team at Bella Protocol for sponsoring today's summit. We are very pleased to introduce Felix Shi, their co-founder and CEO, to talk to us about bringing mass adoption to DeFi and crypto. Please welcome Felix.
This is Felix Shi. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Bella Protocol and ARPA. Today, I'm very happy to be here at the Binance Summit to share my thoughts on bringing mass adoption to DeFi and crypto. So on macro perspective, our thesis is to long stablecoins. In my opinion, stablecoins are the most important connections between crypto world and fiat. So as we know, like crypto cycles are shorter, and it's usually 2 to 3 years. Volatile credit cycle, which brings the lending rate much higher than normal economy. More importantly, DeFi gained a lot of traction in the past quarter. And DeFi protocols are sharing revenue and incentives with liquidity providers. So therefore, the lending rate and the liquidity yield is much higher in stablecoins than fiat. So this will cause a lot of hot money to gradually inflow into crypto as stablecoins. And stablecoins are turning from a medium of exchange into also a savings instrument, right? So I think the yield difference will be the next big theme for the stablecoin market cap growth. And I think in the longer term, commodities and even properties are going to be tokenized and traded as crypto, and those are going to be denominated by stablecoins as well, making the market cap even bigger. Right? So I think we are still at the infancy of the rise of the stablecoins. If we compare stablecoin market cap to like Bitcoin or even like from traditional finance perspective. Global equity market cap is $90 trillion. So that is kind of on par with the total money supply, which is at $96 trillion. And for crypto, Bitcoin, Ethereum, all the floating rates are 300 billion market cap. And for stablecoins, it's only like 16 billion right now. So I think there's still at least 10 to 20 times of upside in stablecoin market cap. And a lot of them are going into DeFi as like liquidity providers doing the yield farming, right? So before we launched Bella Protocol, we actually did 2 massive surveys of DeFi user pattern in both Chinese and English, right? So we gathered about 700 responses, and here are the results. Most respondents are seasoned crypto traders. They're not tech-savvy folks, but just normal users with like probably small check size. so like most of these like seasoned traders, they have wallets. They also have heard of DeFi. Some of them are already invested in DeFi. The main reason to use DeFi is for the liquidity mining to get significant interest rate. And the main reason for not using DeFi is, first, the gas fee is pretty high. Most people don't want to spend more than $2 as gas fee, which is not possible at the moment. And the second is, don't know how to get access to the app or have no wallets. Because like in China, there are not many people using Chrome and neither MetaMask, right? So people get access to the app from mToken or Trust wallets. So it's a little bit confusing, to use the app. And the third is the poor user experience and slow speed, right? So and most of people require annualized return over 15%. I think a big portion of them even expect like an APY more than 50%. So I think the products that really can bring a lot of user penetration is from different aspects. For example, zero gas fee. It should be free to use, right? The second is like smooth user experience, just like using an exchange or anything that we use on a daily basis. And third, it should be very self-explanatory because like the user don't want to spend more than 30 minutes or like 1 hour to learn about DeFi or to learn about smart contracts. And fourth, it should be risk adjusted because there are a lot of smart contracts not audited at the moment. And so it's a big vulnerability for the whole ecosystem, right? So I think the industry need an automated asset manager for normal users, not only for like the tech savvy folks. So now I'll spend a couple minutes to introduce about Bella. It's a one-click crypto banking for everyone. So as you guys might know, Bella is selected as the first project on Binance Launch Pool, and people can just stake BNB, ARPA, and BUSD for Bell token. I think it's a great way to bootstrap. And for the product roadmap, we're going to launch 4 different products in the next 3 quarters. And the liquidity mining will be the first one after the launch pool. So the liquidity mining starting late September, the user can simply stake Y-Curve or ARPA, Bell, Uniswap LP tokens to earn Bell token reward. I think it's also a great way to bootstrap and also to educate a lot of people to use DEX, right? To enter the DeFi industry, DeFi sector. So here's the interface. It's very straightforward. And for one of our core products is the Flex Saving that we scheduled for launch on the 4th quarter. It provides quick access to diversified yield farming strategies across popular DeFi protocols. For example, Compound, MStable, Curve, etc. Right? So it has low gas fee because we subsidize and we interact in batch with smart contract. It's auto balancing. User don't need to worry about which protocol is to farm next week. So it's very time saving. And the third is it's diversified. So the user's fund is not going to one single protocol. It's going to different like at least like 2 or 3 different protocols, and it's risk adjusted. So Flex Saving can be integrated with CEX or other traffic platforms, and to share on-chain referral bonus as well. So we want to gather everyone. We want to gather like everyone in the ecosystem to participate in DeFi. And one-click portal is another one of our core product. It is a hybrid between CeFi and DeFi because we know a lot of people don't have wallets or they don't know how to get access to DApp or smart contract. Right, so we built a smart portal for inexperienced users to participate in yield farming via custodian service. We aggregate order and interact with smart contract every certain period of time, and we subsidize everything. Right, so it has zero gas fee, great user experience, just like you use your like mobile banking app. Like all the interest start accrue next day, not on the same day, but it's actually the same with like all different type of wealth management products that we have in the banks. It is centralized, but we will also expose everything, like all the transaction and interaction with smart contract to the user. So we try to be centralized but transparent. So this product we are going to launch in November, right? So I think like due to time constraint, you guys can check out our research and check out our website as well. So thank you, and hope you guys can participate in the launch pool.
Thanks again to Bella Protocol for supporting our event and the wider DeFi space. Now it's time for the final session. Leah, what have we got planned?
Yeah, so for our last panel, we'll be looking ahead to the future of DeFi. Is DeFi a short-lived trend, or will it change the blockchain and crypto industry for good? What will the future of DeFi markets look like? When will DeFi be ready for the real mainstream audience? And is DeFi technology today scalable and sustainable? These are just some of the topics that we'll be covering next, and let's see what the experts have to say. Ash Egan, partner at Accomplice VC, will moderate this session. Please welcome Ash and our next speakers.
Thank you, Leah and Josh, for introducing me. Today, I'm going to be joined by Camilla Russo, founder of the Defiant and author of the Infinity Machine, Tekchia, head of Binance Labs, and then Sergey Kunz, CEO of 1inch Exchange. I'd like to introduce them and allow them to introduce themselves and provide a little bit of background as well.
I can start. I'm Camilla. I'm the founder of the Defiant. The Defiant is a content platform focusing on decentralized finance, and the author of The Infinite Machine, the first book on the history of Ethereum. Previously to going full-time crypto, I was a reporter at Bloomberg News for 8 years covering markets, and that's where I started focusing on crypto in 2013 when I was reporting on Argentine markets. I wrote about Bitcoin for the first time. So that's a bit of background on me.
I will continue. Hi, everyone. My name is Sergey. I am a co-founder of and CEO of 1inch. I'm a software engineer, architect, and security expert since 15 years. Also a lot of business experience in several fields. 1inch Exchange is a DEX and DeFi aggregator, which provides best price on the DEX market. It makes no sense to swap directly on any exchanges, DEXs anymore, because you don't really know where the best price is. So for this use case, we have built a 1inch Exchange on the Ethereum hackathon last year. Over 2 nights, and one day we fell asleep. So I'll hand over to Tech.
Hey, my name is Tech. I'm part of Binance, and I joined Binance about 2.5 years ago. I joined a venture arm called Binance Labs, and then now I'm part of this new initiative called Binance X, where we engage with developers in the crypto space like Sergey, and support them with fellowship grants if they're developing open source software, or help seed and incubate these developers if they're interested in starting commercial token projects. So that's what I'm doing at Binance, and happy to be here. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you guys for those backgrounds. So let's just jump right into all things DeFi. Starting off, we've seen an absolute explosion in TV out, total value locked in DeFi transactions. One metric that has been lagging has been the number of wallets or number of users. This morning I checked, it was around 40,000 users interacting with these decentralized protocols, interfaces. What from your various perspectives is going to bring us to millions of users? And I think all three of you come at this from a different angle. So why don't we start off with Sergey?
So about the numbers first, maybe. From our point of view, there are many more people who use Ethereum right now. The most of the DeFi right now happening in Ethereum platform. And we see, based on the Dune Analytics statistics, we see in a month millions of wallets, 5 million of wallets which use Ethereum. Yeah, and it's like everyone says it's like 20 or maybe 40,000, but it's not true. And there more, and because of that, we have this huge gas prices, because it's everyone needs to send you transactions and let them execute. So the question is about scalability of the blockchain. So I see that Ethereum has, of course, limitations. We reached already kind of the limits of Ethereum, I would say, and we need a solution for sure for that. There are several out there, and yeah. So that's from my side.
Cami, how about from your from your purview, how do you think we'll get DeFi to millions of users? Whether it's 40,000 today or even hundreds of thousands.
Yeah. So I think we can argue about what the exact number of users are. They probably have been increasing, but I think it's hard to argue against the fact that it's still an ecosystem used by a very niche group of people. If I talk with any of my friends or family about DeFi, nobody still knows what I'm talking about, and I'm writing about it every single day. So I think there's still a long ways to go until DeFi goes mainstream. I think obviously scalability is an important factor. The base layer needs to be able to process a high level of transactions in the first place. I think also just reducing or minimizing the risk associated with all these platforms, from making sure that everything out there has been tested, audited, has been working for some time, handling large amounts of volume and value without hacks or bugs or anything. But also providing insurance to make sure people have that kind of security or knowledge that when they're depositing their funds in DeFi, they have some sort of recourse if something happens. Obviously, education is kind of like the obvious thing to point at. But I think also important is just providing an easier way to access this in the first place. I think just the on and off ramps are still a little bit clunky. There's still so many steps you have to go through to start interacting with DeFi. So I think, all of these things need to happen still. I think, I have no doubt that they will happen. For me, it's just like so obvious that this is the future of finance, but we're in the very early days, and because we're not there yet, I don't view it as necessarily a bad thing that it's still being used by a more kind of niche and knowledgeable audience, because it is so risky.
Yeah. So I think DeFi is still super early, just as the crypto and blockchain space is still very early. So if you think about DeFi as just a decentralized versions of financial markets and financial instruments that we've seen and developed in a centralized world, DeFi is nowhere close to even touching a lot of these markets that have been operating for decades. So just by that alone, I think we have a long way to go. And then just also, DeFi, and I touched on that in the previous presentation, just being on the blockchain democratizes these markets. So anyone in the world could participate in the same market versus, now markets are very fragmented across jurisdictions in the centralized world. And that actually accelerates liquidity and network effects and all that stuff. So in my opinion, DeFi will actually grow faster than centralized financial markets. So, and then because of the composability nature of of DeFi, innovation is happening a lot faster. So anyone, any developer like Sergey, for example, could come up with a protocol, could come up with a new sort of financial instrument product service fairly quickly, launch it and gain traction in a matter of weeks, or even like Sushi's like 1 or 2 weeks. That doesn't happen in a centralized world. So I think just being decentralized on the blockchain, democratized access, and fully verifiable, and people can trust because it's transparent and everything else, these properties actually enable DeFi to innovate and iterate really, really quickly. And then that property actually helps with adoption. So I don't see DeFi as growing linearly. It's going to grow in exponential ways. And in some ways, we've seen a little bit of inflection point, but then I think a bigger inflection point is coming as more products and services and innovation come into the space.
Yep. I think some great points in there. And so a few of the core tenets of DeFi are the composability, like Tech you brought up, the open source nature. We have seen a explosion in forks, migrations, aggregators, all of these things. From the panelists, are these additive? Are they confusing to bring in a larger audience, or how do you view this, sort of Cambrian explosion of activity for products and what's happening in DeFi today?
So I would start. So I would suggest to everyone to not invest in any projects which are not audited, and don't trust, verify. So unaudited contracts are very dangerous. I and my co-founder Anton, we started 2018 to do security audits of smart contracts and live streams on YouTube, like 3-4 hours. Overnight, we audited smart contracts and tried to explain that people don't invest in a Ponzi scheme or in smart contracts which are not audited, and try to collect user money. Yeah, and in current projects, what I see, like I name it clearly, Sushi. Yeah, for example, the Sushi developer did an X scam. They cashed out with $12 million. This is insane. Yeah, and because of that, all the normal teams, they have locks. Yeah, they have like vesting period of like 4 years, for example, we have, so to avoid such scenarios. Yeah, and a lot of people lost already money. Yeah, and we can say we are happy that we got FTX in place, who just take it over and support that with a really strong team. So, but everyone should be aware that there are a lot of projects that might look like a DeFi projects with value behind it, but a lot of them are like Ponzi-like schemes from my point of view. Yeah, and publishing something unaudited and say, okay, you can earn thousands of percentages APY of that on that by just providing liquidity on Uniswap and giving the liquidity pool token to someone else, or putting in an audited contract. It's really dangerous, and it can damage the space. Yeah, the next big hack would just damage really hard DeFi from our point of view. Yeah. Else I can add, it's great that we got more volume, so we were also happy to integrate Sushi to get better prices for our users. Sushi, of course, we were able to bring more people who provide liquidity. Uniswap growth from almost 300 millions to 500 millions in this time of Sushi, and now we have like 1 billion of extra liquidity. This is the opposite side, I would say. Positive side, and the negative side is, of course, this unaudited and highly risky implementations. But by not public persons. Yeah, all the people are hidden. So I'm here. My name is Sergey. Everyone knows who I am. So if I publish something, so I'm responsible for that. But not those people who publish projects with in personal data. I will hand over to Camila.
Yeah, so this is a really tough question for me because I think there is a lot of value in all this innovation and the explosion of forks and new projects while being, audited or not. I think they are creating value by, just thinking about new ways of doing things, to bringing in new people to DeFi. But at the same time, I agree that they are, adding risk, that people may lose their money, and that they might damage DeFi's reputation if that happens. So I'm a little bit torn, but I think in the end, this space is valuable because it's open and permissionless. And so it was, at its core, it's meant to enable this kind of explosive innovation. And so I think, as long as people are taking educated decisions when they're putting their money in unaudited contracts, that should be their own decision. But, then they should be fully aware of the high risk that they're taking. I think, hopefully there aren't any kind of unsophisticated, kind of new to crypto people going into these unaudited projects. I think we should kind of do everything we can to make sure that doesn't happen, and provide education and tools and guide new people to crypto to the safer audited options in DeFi. So I think, I'm leaning towards being in favor of as much innovation as possible, as long as, people know exactly the risks that they're taking when they're getting into that. And I think, same with ICOs, we'll learn lessons from this boom. I'm sure we'll learn that much of what's going on now isn't the best way of doing things, but, those are lessons that we'll have to learn, and the space will grow because of that. So I think it'll be a net positive in the end.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Camilla. I'm more supportive of open and permissionless innovation, and which is what we're seeing in the blockchain space, especially in DeFi, where there's a Cambrian explosion of innovation. But with permissionless and open kind of platforms, there are also negative aspects to it, where, especially in crypto, where people are holding their own private keys, there's no one to blame but yourself. So you have to be, it's kind of like buyer beware, caveat emptor kind of philosophy towards participating in these protocols. Just like, open protocols kind of, the internet is an open protocol. It kind of led to this Cambrian explosion of really valuable goods and services up there, adding a lot of value to people's lives. I think in the financial markets or the finance world, the same properties that blockchain brings to all these different use cases would also, bring the same benefits to finance. So I feel like there's pros and cons, and personally, I feel like there's more pros than cons, and the cons can be mitigated through education, through maybe things that you can verify easily yourself. You can have blockchain is really good at that, right? So everyone could verify for yourself, and and services and companies could make those verification really easy to understand, so you don't have to trust anyone. So I think those are the missing pieces, I feel, that would mitigate some of the cons that we're seeing today. And part of innovation is just churning through these lessons of these supposedly flaws in governance or scams or whatever you call them, and then get to a better place because of the learnings that from these experiences.
couldn't agree more with the permissionless innovation phrase. I think that's super exciting. You know, you're obviously going to have some bad behavior with these platforms and whatnot, but how can these communities or users, how can they build trust in DeFi protocols, interfaces, aggregators? You know, how should teams think around building out communities that, you know, are going to be faithful or there for the long haul? And then on the flip side, you know, how do you think around users having actual trust in the various products and protocols?
So I would start. What we have learned that communities, of course, are very, very important. To build the reputation, it's not easy. So we spend a lot of effort to build our reputation. So for example, we are also white hackers, and we white hat hackers. We hacked BZX in January before these big two hacks. And we didn't take the money. We had access to $2.5 million in cryptocurrency. We didn't take them because we thought like better we sleep as heroes comparing to being thief, and try to get this stolen money into our own pocket. So to show the community that you have kind of you provide trust, but it's still not enough. How I already said, don't trust, verify. This is very important, and we need maybe protocols which would provide possibility to verify very, very easy specific smart contract or implementation, like a DApp, completely DApp with a smart contract implementation, that it is really this application published by the real developers. It's not like a scam which happened to us last week. Someone just published ads with just a little bit different domain, and the site was looking like ours. We had to report to MetaMask and Google to just remove that. And we need more tools to protect the people, because we can't afford that the people would lose trust into DeFi. So we need more auditors, more audits. Every change in the mainnet should be audited. And not everyone follows these rules. Sometimes there are teams deploy directly in the mainnet without an audit from at least two companies. So that's my statement. Camila, your turn.
So I think a key piece here is providing and building the right incentives for both the team and the community to kind of not have to just blindly trust that people will be in the protocol for the long term, but know that it will make economic sense for them to do so. So, I think that was the problem in SushiSwap, where there wasn't a long-term incentive for the founder to stick around. So providing things like, or building with things like vesting periods is important, or any sort of incentive that where that the team stands to gain more if they keep building the protocol than just dump their tokens in the first few weeks. So that would make me trust a protocol, knowing that those incentives are in place. And for the other hand, for the community itself, I think you start to build a strong community when you also align their incentives towards the long-term health of the protocol. So things like boosting rewards 10x for the first 2 weeks and then having them drop off. Things like that kind of go against a long-term value for the community. It just makes people pour in the first 2 weeks and then just leave when the rewards are over. So I think those are kind of the lessons that I've been at least getting from this like hype or boom cycle from DeFi is placing the right incentives for both the team and community are key in kind of the long-term health of the protocol and like the space in general, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. I think we have to go back to the basics of the right governance structure that would incentivize the right behavior and align everyone's interest in the same way. You know, essentially minimizing the likelihood that bad behavior would happen, and that's the case. You know, even with the original Bitcoin paper, the whole thing works because of this game theory of incentives. So I think we've gone through like, you know, 10 years of designing protocols, designing incentive schemes. I'm pretty sure DeFi, you know, is full of people who are very good at those things. And of course, you can expect everyone who participates in DeFi to understand the concepts and theories behind those incentive schemes. So you need easy ways for people to kind of understand these things that include education, you know, journalists or writers like Camila to explain in layman's terms how those systems work. You know, even if you know, go outside the blockchain world, you see things that are free and open source software like Linux, you know, up and down the stack. A ton of values riding on top. Like I'm pretty sure Google, Amazon, Apple, whatnot, even Binance is using open source software, which we haven't verified ourselves, right? We kind of have this trust system that, you know, that, you know, the length of time that Link's been around, it hasn't, you know, gone off the rails is kind of gives us some sense of comfort that, you know, Linux doesn't have like a giant bug in it. So I think trust is based on, you know, your sense of what the incentives are in the system, and that is especially true in the blockchain space. Yeah.
Yep. All great answers. I want to take a step back, and today there was a big announcement from CZ around the 100 million going into, you know, funding projects on Binance Smart Chain. Uniswap announced the Tron integration. You have, you know, a few of these other layer ones which are beginning to be in headlines. But to date, you know, pretty much all of DeFi has been on Ethereum. I'd love to collect your guys' thoughts around, you know, how does DeFi live, you know, from here on out? Does it live across multiple chains? Is it, you know, primarily Ethereum? And maybe we can start with Sergey around, you know, your guys' decision to, you know, make that announcement today.
Yeah, thanks. So our announcement with Tron together, that we are going to also support Tron blockchain on 1inch, and also going to deploy our Uniswap, our next generation, how we call that, automated market maker, which is based on virtual balance and the idea from Vitalik Buterin from 2017, to let the liquidity provider earn more than arbitrage traders, and also to avoid front-running attacks. So we see that we can expand also to other blockchains. So DeFi started also already on Tron. They deployed a Uniswap fork, and they have already volume. And this is a trick. Can you hear me? Sorry, my connection. Yeah, I'm back. We see. We have seen volume on the Uniswap fork on Tron, and it was a trigger for us to check. Okay, makes it sense to support also Tron blockchain. It's similar to Ethereum. Yeah, the main player here in the space, DeFi space, but it's slow. You know, Ethereum is slow. And we have like 5 minutes of wallets who try to interact with Ethereum, and it reached already capacity what they can actually handle. So people start looking like on the left and to the right. So one thing is Tron, yeah. The other thing, a nice opportunity also for us here to work with Binance and also deploy our Uniswap on Binance Smart Chain. And show everyone that it's also possible to work with centralized exchanges and DeFi in kind of decentralized manner. Yeah. So there are other options where we can scale, like also Near protocol, for example. Actually, sharded blockchain similar to Ethereum 2.0. Vitalik grabbed some ideas from the white paper from Skidanov. We know those guys. Anton was working Near, and actually there's a possibility to scale with sharded blockchains, but you have to rethink everything again. You have to rebuild everything again, because if you want to have a really scalable product, just a fork of Uniswap wouldn't help you. Yeah, right now, like Binance Chain has better performance than than Ethereum, and Tron as well, but you have still kind of limitations, like Solana as well. Yeah, the future of Solana looks like we have huge big machines, and not everyone can run them, and it's quite expensive to do that. Yeah, you need to choose the best efficient way. Yeah, to let the DeFi space grow. Yeah, that's my statement. Yeah.
Tech or Cami, anything to add there?
Yeah, I think it's a good thing to have competition in the blockchain space. It just keeps everyone or every chain honest. And I think DeFi protocols are generally chain agnostic. They can migrate to different chains that suit their objective. And naturally speaking, like if Ethereum fees become too expensive, then people will look for a chain that has cheaper fees and better performance and everything else. So I think it's a good thing to have multiple chains competing for those DeFi protocols, including Binance. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. Competition is always good. I think one piece to add to this is obviously the progress of layer 2 scaling solutions and how they will play a part in DeFi. I think it's become obvious that Ethereum has reached its capacity, and it's become pretty unusable for people other than whales who can spend that much on gas. But the good news for Ethereum is that there are scaling solutions which are already live. The different roll-ups are kind of the main ones, the promising ones, Plasma as well. So these are things that are already live, which was different from like CryptoKitties times when these were all kind of research papers. Right now there's like already projects building on this. And I think that the challenge here, both for layer 2s and also for other layer 1s, is that, by the nature of how DeFi is built, being so interconnected and so composable, that it would have to kind of all move together to any of these different solutions for it to continue providing the same amount of value as it is today. Like all these protocols on their own, like Compound by itself, Maker by itself, isn't very, very exciting. So I think that's the challenge. Like they will all have to migrate together, or alternatively, maybe other layer ones will attract a new set of developers, and there will be different applications being built on those layer ones. But I do see a more kind of multi-chain ecosystem that we've seen so far. I don't see why maybe different chains can start specializing on different use cases potentially. I think if you're optimizing for large transactions where you need to be sure that they're not going to be censored, you're going to go for a more decentralized layer one like Ethereum. But maybe if you're playing kind of with NFTs or maybe kind of doing payments or doing transactions that you need a higher volume of transactions, but aren't transacting that high value, then maybe other less decentralized chains but higher throughput chains do make more sense than Ethereum. So I think it's an exciting time because all of these things that were kind of in research are now going live, from L2s to L1s. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm not like a maximalist for anything. So I'm just excited to see how this develops. I think people will go to the best tech, but also obviously the most active community. So it'll be the space that kind of can balance those two things, what will attract builders.
And to add to it a little bit, I think there are some projects that are building solutions to kind of bridge different chains, so you can actually maintain the composability of DeFi across multiple chains. So you kind of avoid the accumulation and network effects into one chain.
Yep. We're going to jump over to questions from the audience. So Garth asked about, and this was actually brought up on one of the earlier DeFi panels, exponential mass adoption will come when we're bringing legacy or traditional products into DeFi. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think it's the case? Yeah, would be great to hear everyone's input here.
I think it starts with that, like, you have to have kind of the key pieces of financial services to, okay, sorry. Okay, I think you need kind of the key pieces of financial services to bring people over, because how can you kind of replace what you're using if DeFi doesn't provide an alternative? So you will need decentralized exchanges, lending, borrowing, but I think when DeFi gets really, really exciting is when you start doing things that you just couldn't do with traditional finance. So things like yield hopping, like putting your savings in a robot which optimizes for what lending protocol is offering the most yield. So that's something that banks just can't compete with. Or stuff like pull together, just this no loss lottery. Things like this that kind of like start to blow your mind, I think is what captures people's imagination and will also, get more people over.
Yeah, I agree that there's a lot more different products. And again, to repeat, because of the composability, the permissionless nature of DeFi, the innovation is happening much faster. A lot of I think the inflection point will really come when users are interacting with DeFi and they don't even know it's DeFi, or is on the blockchain, right? So they just are leveraging or just using those products for a particular use case for the value that it brings. It's basically just using finance. And you layer on top like an easy to use interface like Robinhood or whatever, and it just seamlessly abstracts out all the complexities of DeFi or CeFi or whatever it is. It's just finance. I think that would bring in the masses. Just like in most products, even outside blockchain, like most people don't even know how the internet works. Nobody knows how HTTP protocol works. So you don't have to know. You just go to Amazon, buy some stuff, and then things show up at your door. So I think we have to get to the stage where people are not talking about complex or complicated protocols and you have to go through a presentation to present to people what those means. People just use it and they and add value to their lives. So I think once we get there, the inflection point, the masses would just adopt.
Yep. Sergey, and maybe also as part of launching Mooniswap, have you thought about traditional assets, things like bringing Tesla or these stocks on chain? I think this is also inclusive in the question. Sergey, would be curious to get your thoughts here as well.
So, the original question, I didn't get it because of my connectivity here. Can you maybe repeat the original question first?
It's around, do we need to bring these traditional or legacy products or assets to DeFi to see exponential growth?
Yeah, we need a lot of products which we know from the current financial system, like derivatives, for example, leverage positions, kind of one of the products from the official from the current financial systems, which can be easily implemented and are already partially implemented already in the DeFi space. For example, you can use Compound or Aave or other lending protocols to create leverage position like five up to 5x. Right now, it's not very efficient. But we will see soon what will happen with that. You can create 5x position and just speculate on the growth of Ethereum or maybe on the drop on Ethereum. And regarding real assets, speculating on real assets, we have for Synthetix protocol, for example, from Kind. There are great approaches, so you can speculate on DeFi asset. So if the DeFi grow, you earn. If it drops, you lose. If you create leverage position, or you short position, you can earn on the drop, and that's great. Yeah. And we need more instruments from financial system into the DeFi space to get better adoption. Yeah. And the DeFi, from our point of view, is about freedom. So how Tech said, it's about composability and to interact in permissionless manner. And with this approach, we can get a lot of people on board, because not everyone has access to the bank right now in the world. You're sitting somewhere in Africa and you have just maybe money on your mobile phone, but you don't have any bank account. Yeah. And very soon, or already right now, they can have Ethereum wallet or maybe like other like Binance wallet on a Binance chain, and can interact with DeFi, yeah, with products and speculate. They can land the token and earn on the API in safety manner if the protocol is audited and without backdoors and admin keys. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So we have 2 minutes left. We're gonna end with, what is your biggest prediction for DeFi that will happen by end of 2021? And Sergey, we'll start with you.
So my prediction is that we will have similar situation with like we had with ICOs. So this huge pump, and again recovering time. We are real projects who work on real products and with long-term position kind of or view would build great products and deliver it for real usage. And I hope we will have end of 2021 a healthier ecosystem of DeFi.
Tech, Camilla.
Yeah, I can go. I agree with Sergey. I think another boom and bust ICO like is likely, but I have no doubt that we'll have more value, more volume, more users than we have today, even if we go through a big hype and then bust cycle. I think two key pieces that we're missing now, and that I think we may have by the end of next year, are some sort of decentralized identity, and with that potentially some sort of unsecured lending system where you don't need to over collateralize your loans. And I think these two pieces will be key in making DeFi more useful for like a mass audience.
Yeah, I agree that there'll be a boom and bust, but then also there'll be a lot of innovation, especially in the areas of making things much easier to use and much easier to seek yield and everything else. And that would actually bring in more TLV, that they'll bring in more users, and that's a kind of positive feedback loop that would just kind of accelerate adoption. Yeah.
Terrific. Well, this was fun, everyone. Thank you for joining me. I'm now going to pass it off to our MCs, Leah and Josh. And thanks again.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Ash, Camila, Tech, and Sergey for joining us. The DeFi space is evolving super quickly, and who knows what will happen tomorrow or next week, much less 3 to 6 months from now. Stay tuned, though, as we watch this space and also bring more of DeFi to Binance. More to come there.
Absolutely. We certainly have a lot planned for this year. So as we embark on this DeFi journey, we're looking forward to bringing you with us.
We hope everyone enjoyed the content today and walked away learning something new. Leave us a comment on Twitter or YouTube and let us know what you want to see next. We'll be bringing more of these events to you every quarter, so see you all at the next one.
Yes, indeed. So finally, a massive thank you to all the participants in today's summit, and most importantly, to all of you for joining us. Thanks again, and see you next time.
Thank you.